Good evening! Hello, everybody. We are podcast episode 20, but let's mainly focus on Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, in-depth talk all about Rebirth, Remake, what is it? Crisis Core Reunion, and anything else that could come from this whole new remaster make thing that has occurred thanks to Square Enix. So, good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for being here. We're all super excited, super stoked about tonight, and the guests I have are Daimorti and Tomato Boris. So, what we will always do at the start of our podcast is introduce our guests of the evening and ask them to tell us a little bit about themselves and what it is they love about Final Fantasy. So, Daimorti, if you could please start by introducing yourself.
Of course. Thank you, H-Bomb. I'm really excited to be here. I'm really excited for this podcast. My name is Daimorti or Dimorti or Morty or Demo or Nick. All of those apply. You can find me everywhere at Dimorti. I'm streaming sometimes, streaming Final Fantasy 14 a lot. Other games, Code of Lamb right now. Huge Final Fantasy fan ever since I was a kid. Although I haven't played many, to be fair. But I love 7. 7 was the game that made me realize as a kid how powerful video game stories can be. And so I'm very excited about the future of the 7 compilation that we're discussing today.
Very exciting. And Tomato, what about yourself?
Well, I've been here before, but yeah, I'm Tomato Bomb. I occasionally stream on the weekends, and Final Fantasy VII was, I think, literally the first JRPG I ever touched. It's not my favorite Final, and I mean, there's definitely significant parts of Remake, and I think what Rebirth will be that I'll really like, but I'm also semi-hesitant on some of the big changes and newer things.
Interesting.
To provide in the name of balance.
Oh, okay. Oh, I
Yeah.
see. This is how it's going to go this evening, guys. So,
Yeah,
everybody at
trash
home,
talk.
just to remind anyone that may not have been here before, the way that this podcast works is I do have some set questions for everybody, but also if you have any questions that you would like to ask either a specific person or any of us, you have a channel point, and it should be only 50 points, so I think everybody will automatically be able to use it. A channel point redemption, asking a question. So if you use that, if you have a question, use the channel point redemption so that I can see it highlighted, and then we'll read it out either at like a good time or at the end of all of our set questions. And I see that Zessel has already asked one. I'm out of the loop. What's Final Fantasy VII Rebirth? Would either of you guys like to fill us in on why we have like this title of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth? Like, is there an easy way of saying why it's Rebirth?
Oh boy.
Not yet. We could speculate on it, but it's basically part 2 of 3 of 7 Remake. To be succinct and accurate, like, and not going into like theories, like.
Yeah, I mean, we can use the developers' words. It is the exciting continuation of the trilogy that we now know, of the remake of the Final Fantasy VII game that we all love and know, and also a game that people can enjoy that haven't played the first part or the original or any Final Fantasy games, because they're doing that as well. There you go. It's everything.
Thank you for all the subs, everybody, and Daimorti, you crazy person, gifting some subs there at the start. It's very kind of you. So yes, if anybody does have any extra questions, hopefully we'll be answering quite a lot anyway. Tonight, as I say, it's going to be very in-depth about looking back on what we learned from Final Fantasy VII Remake, what we have since learned with Intergrade, and their trailers and teasers for things like Crisis Core Reunion and Part 2 of Remake, which is obviously now Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and what you guys in chat might question, what could the Part 3 be called? It's going to be an R, isn't it? But what word would it be?
I presumed reunion.
Remembrance. Reunion is already Crisis Core. It's gonna be probably Remembrance.
True.
I look forward to like it being another 5 years in the future, and we found out what it is, and I just dig out this clip.
There you go.
Okay. So let's start with tonight's set questions. As I say, anyone in chat, if you've got any extras, do feel free to put them in that channel point. My first question is for Daimorti. Currently, what are the significant story differences between the original, remake, and what we've seen so far for Rebirth?
The hard-hitting questions first. So it sort of depends on how you view Remake as a whole, because while they have said that there is a very specific reason why they called it Remake, it is a very misleading title because, at least in my opinion, Final Fantasy VII Remake is not a remake of Final Fantasy VII. It is a sequel to the compilation of Final Fantasy VII ending with Advent Children. It is a direct sequel after the movie ends, in my opinion. So, calling it a remake, marketing as a remake, big misstep on the part of Square, I think. They saw the dollar signs, they went for them. It did work, but it just is a very confusing game for people. It's a very confusing game for people that have no idea what Final Fantasy is. And it's even more confusing for people that were like, I thought this was the OG remake. I'm confused. So like these significant story differences, if we want to go into like heavy spoiler territory, which I'm, as a deep dive this is, the way Advent Children ends is with Sephiroth, or the way Advent Children goes is Sephiroth at the end of the OG dies, but he doesn't die. He goes back to the live stream. He refuses to enter the live stream as all living things are supposed to do, and then uses the leftover energy from Holy to create the Geostigma virus and infect the world as a kind of like FU to all the people. And then eventually he gets rebirth. Like the reunion happens, he gets reborn. You have the awesome Cloud Sephiroth fight scene, lots of gore, lots of blood, depending on which country you watch it in. And then he gets destroyed, and he says, "I will never be a memory." And that is basically the exact thing that happens in the OG game. So the story significance is that Sephiroth, after Advent Children, uses some kind of timey-wimey TARDIS to go back to the OG game and change history. And that's what we see with the Whispers that are trying to keep the OG game from happening the way it is. That's why Jessie gets attacked and her ankle broken, so that Cloud has to go to the Mercury Reactor 5, I think it is. Because otherwise, like, he wouldn't go there, and then OG would not happen. Like, he would never meet Aerith. And so you have like the Whispers, like the Reddit commenters, trying to keep the original intact, like hashtag no changes. And then you have the game being like, no, this isn't a remake. Psych, we lied to you. This is actually a new story. Sephiroth has all the foreknowledge. He knows what's going to happen, and he's trying to change it. And he's trying to manipulate you as the player and as Cloud into doing exactly what he wants, which at the end of the remake you do. With Aerith's permission, basically, and you destroy fate and change history, and everything's suddenly different. So there's just a huge divergence from the original storyline, and that's where we are now. So I'm really interested to see, Tomato, your opinion of like as I said, for me personally, this is a direct sequel. It has nothing to do with a remake. It is just the same story, but like retold as a sequel. How do you see that?
I definitely agree. Like, yeah, all of those hints are 100% throughout Remake. I think with Remake, they actually try to kind of have it both ways, because you can easily, without some of the more deep delve bits, or say intergrade ending in particular, it follows reasonably the original path, and you could conceivably, they could have just continued in an ordinary direction henceforth. I'm still kind of torn on which way they're going to go with it. I feel like they might actually try and have it both ways again. and keep the main story beats in part 2, the same, and then whatever twisty turny things, presumably with Zack, is going to be the big twist in part 2, because I don't think they would get to any Aerith. I don't think they'll accelerate it fast enough to get to the ancient city or the Aerith deaths. See, I honestly think part 2 they're going to go Nibelheim to Nibelheim, like Nibelheim flashback to Nibelheim, and because you can easily have that's a big reveal for new players. It's an easy point to put in something weird and new, building up to a final boss, maybe in the mountains. I don't know, whatever. Like, it's obviously a place of very big story significance. And then they're going to put the DLC for part 2 as a Vincent entry, which will fuel the hype for when they announce a Dirge remake. I feel like they're going to go that route, purely because they went down the route of kind of hyping up Zack at the end of the DLC of the first one. It concentrates on Yuffie, and she was another one of the option characters. There's a certain parallelness that sort of fits in my head quite neatly about doing it that way. Obviously, I don't know. But I feel like they're going to have it kind of both ways. That like some of the twist and turny stuff is going to be subversive or not too in your face until right at the end, so that OG fans, the Whispers who are told not to change, like or trying to preserve the original game, are still at least given something to. Oh, we still get Costa del Sol, and then the Gold Saucer. You still get the main blow by blows. There was one last thing, but I'm slipping.
Yeah, I think I think it will end at the Northern Crater. Like, I think Rebirth would actually end at the Northern Crater, like end of this 3. Yeah, I think
feel
they're
like
going to
they
go
would
that
have
far.
to go very linear. I'm hopeful that with part 2 though, because I feel like part 1 they obviously went through some dev hell. Like, personally, I feel like their argument that it was a fully fleshed out Final Fantasy game fell very short, wherein a lot of the options. It's few on the side quests. The big optional fights are all in the arena stroke hard mode. It's still very small for a full Final Fantasy game, and I feel it's because they went through dev hell and then they sort of went, okay, let's 100% curtail it at Midgar. But now they've got like most of the engine down, barring tweaks and more additions like they did in the integrated DLC. They can just concentrate a bit more on churning out the actual content. So they could easily, because I did OG like normal mode in less than 35 hours first playthrough. I feel like they could properly do a 60-hour. I'm used to 60-hour Final Fantasy, like at the bend. Just chock story content, and yeah, depending on how they streamline that could easily go to greater. But if they do a lot of things like even more additional stuff like going topside with Jesse, like if they keep doing things like that, then it might end up they could cut bits out easily, but they could also elongate it easily, and it's hard to tell which way they're going to go. I am 100% they're going to get to Nibelheim though. Like,
I mean, we saw that in the trailer already. Yeah, like you
Well,
see the flashback scene.
I feel like obviously, yeah, there's going to be the flashback scene. That's going to be basically the opening, which is why they're saying it can be sort of treated as a new entry as well, because arguably a lot of Midgar isn't that significant. Like,
they made it really significant in this one. They made the Midgard section extremely significant, in my opinion. Like, they did a good job. But yeah, I have no idea. Like, they say that you can start Rebirth as somebody who doesn't know Final Fantasy and it's gonna be fine. And I don't understand how that's possible. With all of the revelations that come in, especially they saying that you don't even have to have played Remake and it will be a full title for you. I'm like, but
so
there's so many story hook's gone.
The main missing part is how significant I think Shinra is evil. You would still get
Yeah.
the big opening with Sephiroth, because quite frankly, in the OG game, you don't even know who Sephiroth really is until Calm and the flashback. Anyway, that's the whole explanation. So they kind of curtail that bit. They can have Yuffie literally. I don't know whether they're going to wait, because the earliest point in OG is after the Mithril mines before Junon, but they could easily just have her join up at the party very, very soon, early on. I'm sure that's a change no one would really be like, "Well, she doesn't join until later." Like, it's not the biggest, like, oh wow, out there different. And then you've also got her as a kind of an ignorant party going in, so they can sort of go like, "Oh well, who's that? Oh, that's Rufus. We fought him in the last thing, you know." Like, and they, you know how anime can be easily written to re-explain things several times over in across several episodes. Similar to that, they can easily just add it a bit for like people who haven't quite seen who Rufus is.
That's true.
I mean,
Yeah,
for
especially
me,
with like. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
well, I was going to say, because I was rewatching the end of it all today, and it reminded me that in our first podcast episode, we had Martini as a guest who had never played or seen any Final Fantasy VII before. And we were like, okay, so when it shows you this guy at the end with the black hair, did you have any idea who that was? No, of course not. And so that's always stuck with me, is where they have brand new players to this game and they have no idea what's just been revealed to them. And Square is constantly saying to us, oh no, anyone can pick this up at any point and they'll be fine with it. I just thought it was funny.
Yeah, I think because they have, I mean, it is a Nomura game, the first one, but Nomura is no longer the director of the series. He stepped down to be like a creative director. So there is less Nomuraisms in the game in total. So the setup of Zack makes a lot of sense in the context of Rebirth and them releasing Reunion this year, a year before it. So everybody gets the chance to learn about Zack. And even if they don't, they'll explain Zack pretty easily, because I'm pretty sure that Zack will be a playable character. I'm pretty sure that in Rebirth, one of the ways they will elongate the game is that you will have Party Cloud and Party Zack.
In that very long response to one question,
I warned you.
A lot of things happened in chat, and I would just like to say thank you to all of you crazy people. Thank you very much. I see the hype. Thank you, everybody. You're all going a little bit mental, but I appreciate it very much. So yes, ask a question. Exactly. If you have the question, redeem it with the channel point command. So Waking has asked, so question, when game is more true to the original writing? What? Which game? Which game is more? Hold on, Waking. You're asking which game is more true to the original writing?
But we only have one game. If you mean like the entire series, Reunion. In my opinion, Crisis Core Reunion, the remake, is going to be a 1-to-1 remake with a bit update, hopefully a bit update. Please update the combat. God, please update the combat.
The UI looks updated for the combat.
Yeah, definitely.
The
DMV as well.
The voice actors.
Activating combat mode? No. But Reunion seems to be just 1-to-1. I think they're gonna do it like this. They're gonna pull like a full Nomura on Reunion, on Crisis Core. It's gonna be 1-to-1. Maybe there's gonna be one or two weird lines in between from Sephiroth where like, that didn't happen in the OG. That makes no sense. How did he know that? This is weird. And then at the end, like the credits roll, and then it's like, by the way, boom, everything's different now. He's alive. He didn't die, and also he's now there. And I mean, there is an argument to be made for Yuffie not joining Cloud's party for a while, because Yuffie and Zack meet going out of Midgar and they team up for a bit. Because the way intermission ends is with Yuffie looking down at the plate but staying in Midgar. She doesn't. Well, she's on her way out, but then you see Zack at the Sector 5 church. And there is a I'm not. This is like a crackpot theory, but there could be. They could do that. They could be like Zack and Yuffie go out, because it's kind of awkward. I mean, they already have to figure out a way how to start Rebirth, because you're not going to be level 60. You're not going to have all the material leveled. It's all going to be gone. It's a JRPG. You're going to start at 0. So you're going to figure out a way how to explain that you lost all your weapons, all your material, everything's gone. And then it doesn't really make sense to have like the OG moment where Yuffie just steals your materia.
I think they set that up actually.
Yeah.
In Intergrade, because in the middle of Intergrade, they specifically you see the members of Avalanche, Jesse, Biggs, and Wedge, and you can even play the Fort Condom in a game with them.
Mhm.
They don't really seem to get on. Some of them are a bit annoyed at Yuffie. Some of them, Wedge doesn't seem to mind her that much, but it's not that. There's no story there. But there is one bit where you see the OG party returning to Tifa's bar, and Sonnen goes, "Yo, they're the Splinter Cell
Mhm.
of Avalanche. We don't work with them or anything. No, them bad."
Yeah.
Which
Okay. Mhm.
I thought that was the next time Yuffie, the way they are going to introduce Yuffie to the main party, if they're sticking to the original sort of timeline, they'll show a cutscene of her spotting them and being like, "Oh, it's those guys. They're bad. I'll take their materia because they're bad. It's fine." Like, and then there'll be a more elongated version of the, you know, the weird
Yeah, I can see
yes/no
that.
thing that you had to do in OG, with her
Yeah.
actually kind of ending up tagging along. Or they're going to draw it out even longer where she kind of does that a couple of times as a recurring villain until she finally, "Oh, wait, they're fighting Shinra. I should be helping them." Like, they could easily do it like that.
Yeah, that is one of the things that I really love and why I respect and adore the way they made the remake, which is not a remake, is that we're sitting here talking about a 25-year-old game, and the remake of it, and we're just like, well, are they going to do this? Are they going to do that? Like, there's a thousand theories. Like, did they keep the Avalanche B team alive because they are going to meet Zack, and Zack and Wedge and Biggs and Jesse are just going to go, and Jesse's horny for Zack the entire time, and it's like, oh, I met another soldier. He looked like you, but I mean, you have dark hair, so like, is that going to happen, or is it going to be like, Yuffie steals the materia, and then she's going to be like, oh yeah, you guys are the Splinter Cell, but I saw the plate drop, so I'm really annoyed at Shinra right now, so I'm gonna just join you. Here's your material back. Let's go. There's so many different things that can go.
I'm of the basically I know because I still think there are sort of ways they could stick to the OG. Then probably not. Like I say, I think they're going to kind of try and have it both ways. But I also felt like they were hedging their bets with Remake a bit as well to see how changes like that were received. And obviously the Remake being sequel kind of thing, kind of a controversial one. Some of the hardcore OG ones, no. And honestly, I'm not particularly huge fan of that idea of it being a sequel. I loved Advent Children, but like in terms of plot content, it didn't really add to 7 for me. It was sort of like the entire 7 collection when that came out, the anniversary collection. It was just a huge, nice excuse to be like, "Yo, you're not getting Remake, so here's all this random stuff. Crisis Core, mobile game that we didn't quite get, Advent Children, and all of this." The fact that they're integrating in, like, there's definitely bits that I like about those things that could be integrated, but seeing as time travel to work in as far as a plot point go, it feels like for me, a shoehorned one. But I 100% can see they've laid the groundwork for that. Then Nomura stood down, which made me very like, well, is that because they're going to sort of go, "Yeah, we don't quite like the Nomuraisms. You're going a bit too far with it. Let's tone it down a bit," which makes me think they might sort of stick to OG. I think either way, again, I'm sort of touching on their marketing. Either way, they are 100% playing up the theories, the hype, I feel like there's a big theory on YouTube to do with Zack in the very ending of Intergrade, where he arrives at the Sector 5 church. And some people point out there's differences between the church that he walks into and that of the church in, I think it's Advent Children, but also the actual remake game. There's differences, which one of the primary places Zack sort of turns up in Advent Children is the church, which means it could be a double fake out to say, no, he is dead. He just doesn't realize it yet, and he's in the live stream, and that's the form it kind of takes for him. So that's like very much a way they could stick to the linearness, but still keeping all of these ideas open. Like I say, harboring discussion in theories is one of those things that is just like marketing gold. Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, yeah, like, well, I mean, like Marvel or whatever, you know, like, would just go crazy thinking of what could.
I mean, they did a golden marketing egg. They did the exact same thing. Like, you have all the OG players being like, what is happening to my game? What is going on? I have theories. And then obviously you have a chunk of people that are just like, I just wanted my game. Why did you change it? I don't like this. This is stupid. You've sold me a remake, and it's not a remake. You lied to me. This is false advertisement, which I agree with. It is false advertisement.
So it's interesting you mentioned playing as Zack, because I kind of envisioned they might do that, but they would do it a bit like Zack playing on his own, and it'll occasionally cut to him leaving Midgar, following the vague route of the party back to Nibelheim. And
is it Final Fantasy 8 or Final Fantasy 9 where you have the dream sequences where you play another character?
8.
That's
it
8.
Is an 8. Yeah.
Laguna. Yeah.
They do Laguna with Zack.
I figured they would just back and forth it to keep the vagity about whether he's alive, and the end reveal for Zack is either going to be that he is still alive and he actually meets the party, or he realizes that he's not alive. Either way, for the most of the game, you will still have most of the gameplay, I think, will be WoW for Aerith, the primary party. Meeting Yuffie will be elongated. You know, you'll go through at least in Nibelheim, and like I say, I feel they'll try and have it both ways. So, as you say, the people who are a bit like, I just want my original game trilogy, they get, again, at least more to pull them back. And then they can go like, I didn't like the ending, but I love the remake of the Gold Saucer, and I love the remake of this area, and you know, which is sort of how I had it with a lot of people had it with the remake part 1. Like, I loved how they did this. Oh, it's a huge homage to these enemies. Look, the saw blades, the Hell House. Yeah.
The Hell House, no. They said that couldn't be done. Everybody was like, this enemy can't be remade. Yes, it can. And it's amazing. Cool fight. I love the Hell House. Perfectly placed as well.
So, we still haven't even got to question 2. We've going
answered several.
Half an hour, and you've definitely answered several. We also got a huge raid in from Neon. Thank you so much, Neon, for bringing your people over. For those of you that don't know, Neon is a Final Fantasy VII speedrunner. I mean, he speedruns other things, but he's been focusing on 7 for a good while now. Welcome on in, everybody. As you can see, we are very much deep diving into Final Fantasy VII Remake, Rebirth, Crisis Core Reunion, basically just the whole world that Square is just taking our money for. And a lot of speculation, but also a lot of research has gone into what we are saying and covering tonight. I've got a good set of pre-written questions, but if you would also like to chuck your question into, there is a channel point redemption. So you can either aim it at one of us directly, or you can just ask a question. You don't have to aim it. Pretty much just answering Final Fantasy VII. It can be OG, remaster stuff. And yeah, as I say, it's a channel point redemption. And welcome on in, everyone. Thank you so much, Neon. How many legs does Zack have?
4.
Tomato. How many legs does Zack have? 4. Okay,
4.
Wonderful.
I'm counting 5, but I've been drinking, so.
So there's Dino
I quickly
showing
need to
us how to do it.
interject and make a joke on Paul's behalf. So Neon is a Final Fantasy VII speedrunner, so the opposite of you, H-Bomb. I'm sorry. Not really.
For those of you that don't know, I'm going to be playing OG Final Fantasy VII on Friday the 26th, which is very soon. And the last time I did this, all in one stream by the way, everybody, the last time I did this, it took me 28 hours. And I'm really...
What's the current record?
I'm trying to cut that down to less than 24. That would be preferable.
It's quicker than I've played it.
Neon's going to help me, everyone. Neon has promised that he's going to help
Very
me.
good.
So let's hope that we can really cut it down. But I'm not allowed to do skips because it is for charity, everyone. It is for charity. It's a charity stream. So I'm not going to do any big skips.
Yeah, I heard all characters, all materia, all summons. Very ambitious.
No, definitely not. No, bare minimum. Okay, so some of these questions, so I see Nim, yes, thank you, you've put a question in. I will ask some of these questions towards the end. If there's something that I could hold off, then I'm going to hold them off. I hope that's okay with everybody, because, some people might not be able to last until the end of the stream, but also this will be going up on YouTube, and it will be an actual audio podcast, like a classic podcast is supposed to be, hopefully from tomorrow afternoon. So let me actually get back to our set questions for a minute, which may have been slightly answered. So we'll see which one of you thinks which part of this question hasn't been answered. Considering we only got out of Midgar and Remake, and they've said that it's a 3-parter, where do you expect Rebirth to get to compared to the original story?
Yeah, as I said, I think they're going to go all the way to Northern Crater. I think it's going to end at the end of Disc 3. Cloud is going to hand over the Black Materia. He's going to go catatonic, and that's the end. And then you're like, what? Excuse me? Like, as an OG player, you're like, yeah, okay. And as a new player, you're like, what? Sorry, what? That's my character. Why did I do that? What is happening? I have no idea what's going on. And then then they have to wait 3 to 5 years, and then the next game comes out, and it's like, by the way, this guy is not a soldier. Like, everything you know about this character, we've been lying to you the entire time. He's an unreliable narrator, and you've been falling for it. Should have read the wiki. That's my fault.
I went back and forth on this, like myself. I definitely think Nibelheim to Nibelheim. And it 100% sort of depends how much they are sticking to the OG, like, afterwards as well. There's been a lot of theories about, like, Aerith not dying, things like that, like being able to save her, whatever. Which, yeah, if you just ended on Nibelheim, there would be a heck of a lot to condense into part 3. But if you think about it, the latter half of, actually most of Disc 2 and 3 are actually reasonably short comparatively to Disc 1. They always have been. The reason I sort of ended on Calm is, like, yeah, it kind of thematically made sense with how they're definitely starting the second part, or at least they're going to touch on. And, like, if you sort of go through what they could draw out each area to, like, they can do a couple of days stay in Costa del Sol. They can do a long boat trip with a fair few conversations. I feel like all of Junon is going to be, mini game central from the whole parade thing and all that stuff. Maybe another arena there. I don't know if the reason they skipped over Fort Condor, they might skip over Fort Condor, and, like, there's bits like that well, they've already put the mini game in, and story wise it doesn't matter until later, so they can just touch on it by have the characters walking past it and going Fort Condor, like, but then you can't skip any of Coral. You need Barrett's Pass. There would be mental to skip the Gold Saucer, like, in any way, because
It's gonna be in.
Pass, but
Yeah.
it's the Gold Saucer. I feel like going to Gongaga is going to be really significant because of, again, they're drawing things out and playing up the Zack thing. I feel like there's going to be an actual, when you go get the Titan materia in the reactor, I feel like that There's a little bit with the Shinra there in the OG. I feel like they might as well put like more fights in. There's already a fight with the Turks there. You know, they're not going to skip any of Cosmo Canyon. And if you think about all of that and how long each section could easily be drawn out to with cutscenes and little sections, they could easily hit the 40-50 hour mark, like way before Nibelheim. Like that's more my sort of reasoning. But yeah, the North Crater would sort of make sense because if you think of a third part starting with meeting Sid, going to the ancient temple, maybe Wu Tai, DLC, yeah, it's a very crammed third part unless they deviate great in the third part, which they might do. I don't think they'll give us the high wind until part 3, and I think they'll make it like 10, and it will be like I don't think we'll ever get an open world. I think it will be linear up until a high wind, and then it will be we can't fly it. Select where we will go.
Yeah, I think I think Fort Condor is like up in the air because I can see them cutting it like entirely until the later parts of the game where you go back and it's like story relevant. I can also say them going like, oh, we made that mini game just to like psych you out a little bit, and it's actually going to play a big part because it is like one of the first locations you go to after like Midgar. It's very easy to find, and it would be the perfect opportunity to teach players that haven't played Remake how horrible Shinra is. You know, you have this like resistance base that are just trying to live their life in this little like cave system, and then Shinra just like comes up with their war machines, war machina the entire time, and you like try to defend them, and then you probably fail and people die. Like they've really hammered down like the negative of the world. Like the first, like after the first macro reactor blows, you go through Midgar and it's just like misery, and you're like, wow, are we the bad guys? And I think they're gonna do a similar thing with Fort Condor. They could at least. It would be the perfect situation to just be like, this is a miserable world you're playing. Be depressed. By the way, gold saucer.
You know? That was one of the weird things because I agree with Dino, who I think is in chat. Where part of the thing that was lost with me, not that I dislike the current Midgar we've got in Remake. That was one of my favourite bits, exploring it in the HD wall market. I really enjoyed. But there was a certain pleasantness to, even though there were slums and it was junk all around. It was very bright. There was a lot of daylight. There's a much less cyberpunk oppressed feeling, I feel, in Remake, in Midgar, compared to OG. Just obviously some of that's just stylistically. They could have always intended it to be this way, but there's something more vibrant and bright about it, which is nice to run around. But I 100% agree. They've basically hammed up a lot. Like Shinra's always been very mustache twiddly. There's like literally Karma, I think it is, literally screams in the meeting like tax hikes, like yay, and like things like that. They literally run the city as mustache twiddling villains, and they've really doubled down on that. Like sometimes it works well, sometimes it's a bit.
It is over the top. It is for all of them. It's very, very over the top, and it doesn't.
We've got Scarlet, who's got a guy who follows her around.
Yeah, who then crawls. She kicks him, and he just crawls behind and just like what? And then you realize you're playing a JRPG, and in that moment, it's just like, did they call Kojima? I feel like they called Kojima at some point. This is very Metal Gear. Very Kojima, but yeah, it's a JRPG. They want their fun, and I think it lends itself to the game. Some levity is always nice. War Market is a good example for that. The dystopian like difference between like the party area, Las Vegas style, and this like incredible Don mafioso that just steals women from the streets. I personally actually have to say I really enjoyed the art style and the more bright and very polished, very polished Midgar, because not only visually but because so often, especially in video games, if we take like the Fallout series for example, like everything's just broken. Like everyone lives in filth and dirt and rat poo, and that's just not how it works. Like yes, if the world goes to the shitter and everything is destroyed, you have a wasteland outside your door. you're not gonna have a wasteland inside. Like you're gonna make the best of the space you have. And I really like the slums where it's like very neatly organized. It's really crappy and they used whatever they had on hand, but it's really neatly organized. It makes sense. And in a lot of games, it's just like there's so much junk everywhere. Like you can't live here. Like people don't live here. This is like a game. And so for me in Midgar and the slums especially Wall Garden, just felt like it's an actual like city that could exist.
Mm.
And I really like that about that.
Oh yeah,
But
I
it
100%
does lose
enjoyed the
some of the
atmosphere of what we got.
yeah.
The reason I brought that up is we were just talking about that oppressed feeling. You mentioned that how oppressive Shinra were, and yeah, like I say, me and Dino we were actually chatting about how they've raised the plate from
Yeah.
50 meters to 300.
I think
And
that's a mistake. That has to be a mistake because it doesn't make sense.
it's I think one of isn't it's I haven't actually done the research on this, but is it in part to just allow a parachute drop? Because 50 meters seems like a heck of a short pre-fall
Yeah.
parachute drop, which would be like, yeah, you don't do that. Like an anal retentive person would just be like, no, you can't do that. I'll buy the flying bicycle things and all of that craziness. But
The grappling hooks are fine though. Like, yeah, that makes sense.
but also it's in part, I think visually they might have actually mapped it to be 50 meters above, and they were like, oh, this is really dingy and dark and depressing. Let's up it. Ooh, light. That's really pretty. And
Yeah.
I really enjoyed running around pretty slums. At the same time, though this is a comment I had about both OG and remake. But why the heck has no one taken Aerith's house yet? Like literally,
It's
she
amazing,
lives
right?
in the loveliest place in the
Yeah.
world, and like there are people living in crap city next door. That are people in poverty. Like you know, like you presume like they're meant to be thieves and scum of the earth living in the slums. No one tries to take her home and squat on her property or anything.
Yeah, I think they explained that they are very good at environmental storytelling. I think they did a good job there because if you run around the place, it is in a gorge. It has two entrances. One is the street you walk in with the stairs, and one is a waterfall, right? So there isn't really much space for people to like go in. And then it's about like everybody respects Elmira, everybody respects Aerith and the garden, and they don't want to destroy it. So it like environmentally it makes sense that people leave it as a beautiful place because it's like the only place in Midgar where flowers grow because Aerith is there in a way. But it is a bit of a like that's a pretty big house.
Again, I felt it was them playing down a bit the sort of scummy nature of the slums, which the OG sort of, you know, as much as it could for what it was in the time. Like, you've got obviously just general everyone's seems either a bit depressed, like, you know, I feel like, especially in Sector 5, they played up more that, oh, look, there's the little school and the schoolkeeper, and everyone's friends with Aerith, and you know, there's a great sense that she actually lives in this place because obviously they know each other and all of that. But then again, this is all very nurturing and happy and positive for Midgar slums comparatively.
Yeah.
But I feel we are definitely digressing.
That's okay. That's part of a podcast. I mean, we do have to go to bed at some point, but we are going to have to get through some more questions.
Question 3.
Yeah. But also Neon didn't necessarily actually. It was possibly a rhetorical one. But we've got, will we get every character by part 2, or do you think that maybe Vincent will be held off to part 3?
It is so hard to say because I'm still praying that Dirge just gets deleted and doesn't exist anymore, but I'm sure they're gonna remake it. Please just be a mobile game, just go away. No, I'm sorry.
I feel like we brought up Crisis Core being a 1-to-1 remake, and I agree with you there. I think it's going to be exactly the same, and if they're going to change anything, it's going to be the very end, and it's going to be a psych out kind of thing. So people again can kind of take it or leave it if they like that or don't. Because I'll just forget the last 5 seconds of the post credits. They still get their OG game. But I feel like they're more likely to change Dirge. I always felt like Dirge was a bit more plot holey.
Yeah, they have to.
Um,
Dirge does make sense. Dirge literally does not make sense when you play through it. The story has the
Hojo,
middle part of the story can be cut and nothing changes.
well, also it contradicts, I think, the actual OG
Yeah.
game, where Hojo doesn't confirm the existence of weapon until reaching the North Crater, kind of going, that theory's right, eh? Interesting. Yet in Dirge, years prior, he somehow injected Vincent with the key to another weapon. I mean, they go into it by saying Lucretia has the theory, and yes, Hojo could use her work without her consent. I don't know, to be honest, I feel like Vincent works best as a bit of a mystery, and the lore we get in OG7 about Gast, Lucretia, and Hojo's path was like perfect. It's the connection. Sephiroth, we don't need to actually explain that he is not a vampire, or he is whatever he is. You just need to know he's experimented on, and I feel like that works. So if they're going to change stuff, it might be with Dirge, or again, they might do the like for like thing. But I feel like with that, they're gonna, with my Nibelheim to Nibelheim idea, they would do the Red 13 treatment with him, and he'll join up as a guest because they haven't quite ironed out his in full fleshed out gameplay. Maybe he gets a DLC tie into Dirge. Yuffie gets a DLC, both were optional characters. Or, as if you say, we get to the Northern Crater, I think we'll just get the full roster.
Yeah, I think if we go to the Northern Crater, we'll go for the
There'll be no optional characters.
There is no optional. No. The way I think there's not going to be optional characters in the remake anymore. Everything is important to the compilation of Final Fantasy VII. Every single character has to be there, and Vincent especially. Vincent's a fan favorite. They're never going to cut him. I think that he's going to be in Rebirth. I don't think they're going to do the guest character thing again. I think that was a time constraint. Like, they could not figure out how to do a party swap with Red.
It did tick people off as well a bit, I feel.
And people are mad about it, and it's understandable. I think we're going to get the intermission, like, team attacks for the entire party. Like, every character will have a team attack with a different character in the next episode. And
my
all the
hope
party
is
members
that
will be there.
Kind of go full Chrono Trigger with it. And they give multiple pair-ups for synchronized attack. But they also give very unique three-way attacks for pre-party members, and they might get unlocked depending on which skills they've earned from their weapons. I think that system will change the same. It'll stay the same.
It's a very favorited system in Japan. You had it in the Persona series. In Persona 5, you had team attacks added in Royale, these absolutely absurd cutscene attacks. And I think we're going to have something similar in Rebirth. But to answer the question, I think it's going to be the entire party. After 10 minutes. If we go to the Northern Crater.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Neon's asked another question, but Neon, I think that is one that I have already on my list, so it'll get answered when we get to it. Thank you for getting your questions in. If anybody else has any, feel free to chuck them in as well. So my next one is, do we believe the title Rebirth is about Zack and not aimed at Sephiroth or the original 7 storyline?
Yeah, here we come to the tweets that they did after, Nomura specifically did after the announcement of Rebirth, is when all of the 3 top directors, Nomura included, put out a little blurb on Twitter. Nomura had a 2-parter where he was like, I'm so excited to eventually be able to tell you why we named these games the way we named them, because this is the big secret. I don't think Rebirth is about Sephiroth or Zack. I think Rebirth is about them. The game. It is about the second part is going to follow the same tracks for a long time, and you're going to feel safe, and then it's going to be like, yeah, but did you forget that you killed Fate? Like, you killed the Whispers, you changed the history. Now Sephiroth's plan comes to fruition, because Sephiroth doesn't want to do the same thing again. He knows he's losing. He knows he lost 3 times in a row. It didn't work. Like, Cloud defeats him every single time. He has to do something different. So eventually, Rebirth is going to be about changing, rebirthing the timeline of the OG, changing everything. And I have a crackpot theory towards that I had that came after I finished the remake a couple days ago, which I want to talk about later if we get to it.
Oh,
Because I
okay.
think they're going to change something really big, and it's going to piss off a lot of people.
I agree that I don't want to place too much. I think this is definitely going to happen in part 2. Stroke. Honestly, I zero idea which way they're going to go, and that's part of what they're playing up to. Is the fact that, like I say, I think they're kind of having it both ways. If they are going to do any crazy divergent stuff, it's going to be towards the end at some plot significant places like the City of the Ancients, the Temple of the Ancients, or Nibelheim. So those are also potentially contenders for where it would end. But yeah, I feel like, I mean, like thematically, there's only so much they can, like, Zack may be reborn. If that is the furthest right wing they go. Like I say, Zack arrives at Nibelheim almost the same time as the party. Cloud and him see each other, and the reveal that Cloud isn't the soldier happens early. That could be the big thing, and it is a bit about Zack stroke a new universe that they've entered this new timeline. While somehow, I'm really curious because they'll probably answer it quite quickly. In the flashback of Nibelheim, whether Cloud completely wipes out Zack as he does in OG, whereas in the Rebirth trailer, we've already gotten a shot of Zack Cloud closer to Midgar than they ever get. Because in OG they get up onto the cliff where Zack dies, basically, and then in the Rebirth trailer, there's a shot of them very much like on the same plane, approaching slum gate kind of area.
Yeah.
So I feel like they could easily go really hard wing, and yeah, that could be about Zack. And there's also I've seen some theories. Some people were hinting at it being about Kadaj, which touches, I think, on your next question slightly. But some people are leaning towards it being a young Sephiroth. There's a flash in the trailer of a very young, shorter-haired Sephiroth-y looking kind of thing. Could easily be just another clone. Could easily be young Sephiroth. They've decided to change his design. I don't think they changed his design.
They didn't change it. No, I think it's a
because
nod
there's
to
walking
Genesis.
sequence. Yeah, I feel like, yeah.
Get ready for Loveless.
Is that
a
what
lot of
Loveless
Loveless
to? Because yeah, that also the hairstyle is very Genesis, which they're releasing Crisis Core. But I don't actually think. I think it's just a bit of a fake out. It's not actually be something really significant. Like we're suddenly going to meet a young looking Sephiroth.
Yeah,
I feel like
I
it's
think
just
it's
an animation.
I was just like Nomura going like, yeah, but what if we put Genesis in like the trailer for 2 frames? Just like,
And
what if we do that?
What if when Cloud's having his normal I see Sephiroth sudden moment, he sees a flash of a shorter haired one?
Maybe.
Like it
Could be
doesn't
anything.
need to be a hugely significant plot point.
Yeah.
But because it's in the trailer, it leaves us all wondering, oh, is it young Sephiroth Rebirth? The most hammy it's going to be kind of on the nose, and it's literally going to be a character reborn. Oh, Aerith survives. Or I'm leaning towards it's more the theme of the game. It's the new universe. Even though they've beaten Fate, I still think they're going to pretty much stick to the OG. I'd hope they at least stick to the blow by blows, so I can at least enjoy those bits rather than going really hard right turn right from the get go. Oh, look, Sid meets you outside of Midgar because I don't know. Here's some DLC that explains why he was there. I prefer them not to, but impossible.
Okay. My next one's for Daimorti. What happens in the film Advent Children that is looking more likely to be brought into this remake of Final Fantasy VII?
Everything. This is a sequel to Advent Children. It's not a remake. No, everything. Like, to me, everything, it makes sense. So, Advent Children does make sense. Because Advent Children needs context. And the context is in a short story collection that they released, I think in 2005. in that short story collection, they have a lot of short stories. Some about the kid of Advent Children that I forgot the name of. Some
Denzel.
Turk stuff. Denzel, little shit. A lot of stuff. But there is two very important things there. There is Livestream Chapter Black and Livestream Chapter White. Black is Sephiroth, White is Aerith. And those chapters explain everything that happens in Advent Children and how it happened and why it happened. So the Black chapter talks about Sephiroth being in the live stream, holding on to his hate for Cloud and remembering Cloud, and by that resisting the purging of his self in the live stream, which normally happens. Like you go to the live stream, you purge your memories, you just become energy, you become like part of the live stream. But he resists it by holding on to his hatred of Cloud and his connection through Project G, through the Genova cells, and just goes through the live stream over and over, looking at everything. It describes how he's looking at Cloud and all the party members, and how he's so angry that they are rebuilding and happy, and that he figures out a way how he can, one, make simulacra of himself, Kadash and the boys. He can just create them. And two, how he can inflict geostigma on the planet. So the geostigma sickness was him seeking revenge on the planet, trying to kill all the people on the planet, trying to rebirth himself. Through misery, his memory will be remembered. Genova's mimetic memory will be swirled around the planet through the Genova cells and everybody that is afflicted with geostigma. And
one of the questions I've always had with Advent Children is where Kadaj and the I think, did they refer to them as remnants of Sephiroth?
Remnants of Sephiroth.
Like?
Yeah, it's literally remnants that he created outside of the live stream through Genova cells, and they actually existed before. There is an entire novel about Kadash meeting the Turks, meeting Kyrie. Kyrie is a super important character in the novels that we meet in Remake, who is the granddaughter of the Angel of the Slums. She's important. Like, Kadash tries to kill her and then doesn't, and Kadash actually is like a childhood friend of hers that died, and then Kadash assumes his identity, and then Cheng goes there and he recognizes that that is probably Genova's ability, and is like, no, this is like an evil guy, and then all of this shit happens. Eventually Kadash dies, trying to reclaim Genova stuff. He dies, and then Kadash and the other two boys that I will always forget those names, they come back in the northern crater when Genova's head is found. And that's where they attack Elena and Chang and nearly kill them. And that's where this film starts, right? This is the beginning of the film, is the end of the novel that nobody read. And then you have the other novel that explains everything. Because in Livestream White, it talks about Aerith's experience in the livestream. How she, because she's a Cetra, doesn't lose her memories. She's just part of the livestream and senses Sephiroth and senses what he's doing and is disgusted by it. And like how she wishes she could reach out to Cloud, but she can't. And then eventually when Sephiroth makes Kadash and the boys, she learns how to do it as well, and then finds allies, and that first ally is Zack, and that's why Zack is in Advent Children. She reconstitutes his memory, holds him out of the live stream, and they fight for the future. And then, they urge on Cloud, give him a little bit of power, heal the geostigma. Aerith is the one that then heals the geostigma. And it just describes how Sephiroth is this all-consuming hatred in the live stream that you cannot get rid of, because Cloud remembers him. And that is my crackpot theory. The problem with Sephiroth coming back over and over again, and now apparently time traveling even, is because Cloud remembers him, and Cloud still has Genova cells. And as long as Genova is part of the planet, so is Sephiroth. So as long as Cloud exists, Sephiroth exists, which is a beautiful storytelling trope, that there is two sides of the coin, that there is a darkness that you can't purge, and that is described in those chapters, which are very important for the context of Remake, in my opinion.
I mean, I'm kind of surprised they went that long-winded with Kadash and that, when I assumed that, like, without reading, I didn't even know there were books. I knew there was Loveless, but I didn't know there was Advent Children.
I think it's Stories of the Turks is the novel called, I think. It's pretty old.
But yeah, I kind of always just sort of headcanoned that, maybe they were some clones who didn't quite get to the reunion, which is what allows Sephiroth to manipulate power over, just like Genova capable. And I think the directors have 100% admitted now that, like, okay, in the OG game, you're chasing Genova across the continent. not Sephiroth. He's in the crater. But the person you fight at the end of the game, the person with all of this Genova ability, is it Genova stroke Sephiroth? It's all a bit of an amalgam that, because Genova's backstory obviously goes way back to the Cetra of being a great enemy planet, and it's implied that she can kind of remotely control the things anyway, and so there was always that sort of vaguity of who you're fighting.
Yeah.
Like
yeah, the
identity
novels
thing.
kind of confirm the opposite. So if you take the entire compilation into account, and I agree, like in OG, it's very ambiguous as to who is actually in control. And as when I played it, I thought Genova was in control the whole way. But if you read the novels and put everything together, it gets clear that no, the moment Sephiroth decapitates Genova and decides that he's the savior and he's gonna control, destroy, whatever, do with the planet what he wants, he controls Genova. Like, he makes Genova look like him, break out of Shinra main hub. He gets all the reunion clones to him, to the Northern Crater, to bring him the black materia. It's all him. Like, Genova is like the power source, and he controls everything.
Okay, that's interesting.
Let's move along. So, Tomato, from what we've seen of Rebirth, does it look like Zack will have a more integral part? What part of his story could come into the revised timeline of Final Fantasy VII Remake Rebirth? And how could it affect the ending or characters?
So regardless of whether they're gonna do like anything particularly wild with Zack, like keeping him alive, I've already mentioned there's the theory that the church he visits is in fact still the live stream, and I've already mentioned that a theoretical way you could play as him isn't actually in the real world. It's him in the live stream discovering that as a little side plot. Or it could equally be his own run through the world following the sort of same path as the party. I think either way they're going to touch on, because they already have touched on the Dirge content of Deep Ground, they're going to touch on the soldier content, and or at least draw upon the fact that Angeal, Genesis, they obviously have resolved the issues stopping them making Crisis Core for a while, which were the rights to the guy. So they've just decided to completely remake the guy, I think, which seems to happen a lot when they get a celebrity to act a character in a game.
Just what people were asking for what 15 years, and they're just, no, God, I mean, come on. No, just, he's nuts.
Get rid of him.
Yeah, get rid of him. He's not important.
Yeah,
just a voice.
Use a new model.
Yeah.
I think it's his face model as well.
Yeah, it's a face model. Yeah.
So I think they're definitely going to touch on those things. And yeah, I say, like, I think we're definitely gonna get some Zack focus cutscenes, but we won't see what the play is until the very end of the game, where it will be the reveal he is in fact not. It's a parallel timeline in anticipation for new Final Fantasy VII B, which is the parallel universe that we've made. I feel like Square are going to full on Kingdom Hearts it in part. They've already embraced that model a lot in recent years, and they already original Anniversary Collection was also almost the start of that sort of thing anyway.
Yeah.
So I feel like they're going to double down on what if stories. There's going to be some new side games, I'm feeling, as well as DLC. I feel like they're going to Kingdom Hearts it and not let it die.
It's interesting, like, because I'm of the
money
opposite
train.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm of the opposite opinion about Zack. I think Zack is going to be very important to the story. I don't think he's going to be. It makes sense that he would be dead, and then I have to like look at all the screens again, because I'm pretty sure at the end of OG, when he goes towards Midgard, you can see that Midgard is not fully built yet, which would mean it's in the past, which doesn't make sense. But I might have seen that wrong, so I need to check that again. I think Zack's going to play an important role because we know from the OG game that Aerith as well has knowledge that she isn't supposed to have, and it's not connected to the Whispers. So if you take into account Livestream A, Livestream White, and Livestream Black, you know that Aerith knows about Sephiroth's plans. She can like interact with him in the livestream and kind of like guess what he's doing if she doesn't get too close. It's described as dangerous. And I think she knows what Sephiroth is doing, and I think she is implanting memories into her old self in order to change the future, because it doesn't make any sense that at the end of OG, Aerith is
She
like,
touches the whispers though when she gets the flashes, doesn't?
not
When you
always.
see the
No,
meteor.
she says that if she touches the whispers, she's losing part of what makes her her. She's losing part of herself that she doesn't understand when the whispers touch her.
But when you directly in Remake get the cutscene flashes of the OG, which are like meteor and bit of northern crater. There's just literally a few snippets.
Yeah.
You know, as Cloud, and it's not just Aerith, they all sort of touch.
They
the
all
whispers
see it, yeah.
Yeah, that was sort of. I didn't see that necessarily specific to Aerith predicting the future. It does touch on the mechanism. Most people think that if Sephiroth has time traveled successfully, which they could easily just leave really ambiguous, which I think they will, because embracing it will be divergent enough that, again, potentially tick everyone off going like really weird direction with the story. But you know, keeping it ambiguous, it keeps the theorists until part 3, which is when I think if they're going to go like really crazy different, part 3 is going to be the one. But the mechanism I've heard for time travel for Sephiroth has been the life stream itself.
Yeah.
That, well, he doesn't have. There is no random time travel in 7. There's space travel, so there might be relativity. There's time magic, but it's all fast, slow, stop. Okay, the life stream. It permeates time and all energy in it. That there's a weird hole in that I don't know how that plays into Mako reactors using up that energy. I think regardless
That's always
of
been a plot hole though. Like using up the life
regardless
been a
of
plot hole.
regardless of Mako reactors, I think Bugenhagen explains that even over time, without that effect, planets will lose their energy and slowly. Even if the energy is constantly returning to the planet, it's efficient and therefore they will die. Or if it permeates the life stream, how does that play with Aerith being dead but not yet, stroke being able to communicate with the life stream, which seems to be, at least in OG, that was the sort of implication that she could hear the cries of the planet, and I always got the impression that that was kind of the live stream, and that was hard to interpret. She literally runs around in the OG going, who, what? When they're in the
basically
Temple of
the explanation is because she's half Cetra, she can't understand the live stream like the Cetra did. Like she only hears like the echoes of the live stream.
Yeah.
Basically. So the evidence I have why Aerith has foreknowledge is specifically Red. When she meets Red, she literally just touches him and is like, by the way, this is how OG ends. In like 100 years, the planet is dead and you're just running around with your, you don't know, your husband or your waifu, I don't know, like, you know, can we change this? So this is like one of them, because Aerith in that moment knows that they don't have time to explain everything to Red and have the whole chase around thing. So it's just like, boink, here's the foreknowledge you need to trust us. Let's go knock Hojo down one. And then right at the end, when Sephiroth slices Sephiroth does the super cool like dimension rift slice and it's like, follow me. Like no, seriously though, this is my plan. Like follow me, kill Fate so I can change the past, please. Thank you. I need you to do it because I can't do it because I'm in the live stream. I'm actually not here. I'm just in your head, kind of thing. And then Aerith goes there and it's just like, now it's a white portal, live stream white. We have to do this, by the way, because I also want to change the future, because I'm not entirely happy with how this is going, and we can't defeat Sephiroth if he goes into the live stream, so we need to change the future as well. I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but that's kind of what she's like hinting at the cusp of the end before you fight the remnants, you fight Kadash. Like a lot of people think that the fight between you and the 3 whispers that are using 2 blades, a gun, and 1 blade, or like 2 fists, a gun, 2 guns, and 1 blade is Tifa, Barrett, and Cloud from the future. It's not. It's Kadash and the boys. It's the guy with the fists, it's the guy with the pistols, and it's Kadash holding the sword in the left hand, like he does in Advent Children. It's just Sephiroth is using his own remnants to like urge you on to kill Fate. Is my theory, at least. So that's my evidence why I think that Aerith as well is time traveling and and she wants to change the future, which leads me to the theory about Zack, is that when the whispers happens and the explosion happens, it's a white explosion of energy that knocks Zack down. I think that's Aerith saving Zack's life in the past in order to change the future, because because he's her ally basically, and they maybe even came up with a plan in the live stream together. That creates like 1,000 plot holes, because if Zack doesn't die, why does Cloud think he's Zack? It doesn't make sense. So I don't know if there's going to be like a Kingdom Hearts.
Been involved.
Sorry?
That's why I think the portal might have been involved.
Yeah.
Though it's also part of why I think they might also ignore all of that and go, here's a FF7B, what if Zack survived game. But literally, if they were in the universe where things played out as OG played, they step into a new universe, which is why I think the Nibelheim flashback's going to be interesting. Yeah. If Cloud remembers it exactly as is, with no Zack, then presumably he still remembers the original timeline.
Yeah.
And then having the big ending twist be that he meets potentially alive Zack, be another thing to mess with his head, stroke the clarity of what actually happened at the Nibelheim incident. You know, add confusion to the fire. You know, that's Nomura's philosophy, I believe.
That's the problem with time travel. Time travel is very difficult to write, so it's dangerous territory.
This is why I prefer they leave it as a kind of esoteric thing.
Yeah.
At the end,
I can see that
you can take or leave, because, quite frankly, time travel's nowhere in original Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah.
It's a wild out of play thing to put in there as the main crux of the plot. So I think it'll always be
It is. That's the wonderful and the terrifying thing about all of this. You know, all of these theories, like, it could be time travel, it could be the sequel to Advent Children, it could be something totally different, and we will not know until the credits rolled on Rebirth's last DLC.
I don't think you'll ever know, because
not Rebirth, the third part.
I think Nomura will have it. He'll leave it vague.
Well, he stepped down. He's no longer directing the next two parts, so there might be less of that. You can say a lot about Nomura. He's a good developer, and I think he's learned his lesson after Kingdom Hearts 3. I think he's learned his lesson, and I think that's a lot of the reason why he's a creative director now and not the game director.
He also learned a lot from Kingdom Hearts franchise as a whole on terms of keeping people on tenterhook. And
how do you make money hand over fist?
Well, you don't understand this game because you haven't played blah 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 game.
You haven't played the mobile game yet? Or you haven't watched the cutscene compilation, 365/2? No?
Between that and 15 is the biggest outright attempt to do that in one go they've made, I think, to make a franchise of a single thing that you need to invest in every single entry.
Yeah.
They, again, learnt very quickly, because people were like, I don't want to read a book, watch a film that isn't English yet. And they don't... People want to, at least, if there is all this side content, great, but make each thing as good and an explained thing in itself. Yeah. So I feel like, we're sort of getting OG, but...
Yeah. For me, it's two things. I'm a Final Fantasy 14 player. I have Naoki Yoshida as the game director of that game.
Since before Realm Reborn?
Since Realm Reborn. And he sees Final Fantasy as his masterpiece, Final Fantasy 14, and you can always trust him to do what's best for the game. Like, there is not this fear that other games have. Like, there's a lot of trust, because he just doesn't let you down, because everything he does is because he loves the game, he loves the players, and he's trying to do right by them. And I get the same sense from the Final Fantasy team. They know how important Final Fantasy VII is to the world, and they don't want to mess it up, but they also don't want to retread ground. They want to...
No, there's a culture in Japan specifically that I think we might have mentioned the last time we did the 7 podcast. If you look at things like Evangelion as well, it's the idea of remaking something but putting your own twist on it. The idea of outright remaking something is actually not as prominent there. The idea that you have to put your new twist on the new thing is
Yep.
much more of a thing, as well as just generally straight up rehashing your ideas. I say this as someone who I enjoyed bits of Evangelion. I get tired of the idea that there's 3-4 now and I need to wait for the redone thing again. Like it tires me a bit, but you know, it's got its place. But I feel like they've learned from all of this sort of stuff that they need to make it. It's why it's going to be almost playable on its own. If any of them is going to be not playable without playing any of them, it will be part 3. Because, and I think they'll try and stick to both of them being on PS5. Because the lifespan and the development time of the first one obviously pushed it way towards the end of the PS4's lifespan when they had made promises like, you won't need to worry about more than one console, and no, we're going to all need to buy a PS5 stroke a PC if you wait a year because it's Square and they don't do exclusive.
I'm going to ask a question that Gags has written in chat. What do you think about the Aerith and Marlene scene when she calms her down with one touch?
Foreknowledge. They gave Marlene foreknowledge about all the fun times she's going to have together with them all, and how Barrett is going to be okay in the future. Just literally like, I need you to calm down now, so...
Vague, yeah. It's going to be like the powers of an empath. Yeah. And again, vague as such what she can do and not do. They're not going to explain explicitly.
No.
She can impart the memories into people. I thought they could have handled the Red situation a lot better. I can't remember what it was. I feel like they could have easily just sort of cut to black or had Red preloaded with quite a lot of knowledge anyway, because he's from Osmo freaking Canyon. And he's had Bugenhagen as a teacher, so he might already know of the Cetra, a plight of the planet. But yeah, you know, like, I don't think they'll address it. I think they'll let fans go, she must have the ability to do this.
Yeah. I mean, we know that Marlene is pretty special because she continues to be a main character in Advent Children and stuff, and some of the novels, I think.
I think, isn't the implication in Advent Children she's one of the few children... Well, she ends up going along with Kadaj.
No, she gets kidnapped.
Lodos?
No, she gets kidnapped. She
I figure she went along as well for Denzel.
No, like literally, she gets kidnapped by the guy with the fist after he beats up Tifa, out of the sacrifice church.
It's after out of the church. But yeah, she never like falls prey to it, and they kind of imply that it's like in OG. I don't know whether it was just one of those undeveloped plot ideas that it's like, the very young can still hear the cries of the planet because they're innocent. It's only as they grow older that appears. Because they do have her talking about Aerith kind of comforting her, even though she's dead already. And it's hard to say whether that's it's children innocent or it's Marlene being a bit special.
It's more
there
like
were hints of like, okay, Aerith can leap out of the live stream and influence things beyond that.
I think it's like a thread that they took from Advent Children and kind of brought into the remake, where she's just like, Marlene is scared, touch, and calm down.
That's in OG, the idea that she says she can
is that
hear
in OG? Okay.
She says something about being able to hear the nice flower lady's voice or something.
Right, yes,
she does. She's already dead.
Yes.
And Barrett and the guy are like, huh?
Yes, exactly.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So, yeah, like, again, they don't really... I think it's more that Aerith can reach out of the live stream.
Yeah.
Marlene's special, but she continues to be, like, a very important scene. So, like, it wouldn't surprise me if they suddenly weird that. And I think that they're going to play up the Marlene-Aerith bond that they like to each other. Because Marlene kind of has Tifa as a mother figure, but she doesn't... I feel like she always bonded with Aerith very quickly.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. With Elmira and Aerith, she's going to bond really quickly,
Yeah. It was like a family unit.
Tifa's more like a sister at that point.
She's helping her run the bar.
Just to go back to what you were mentioning with Kingdom Hearts earlier, Swiggle asked, do you think there's a risk of Square losing their way with this like Kingdom Hearts? If we could keep this a short response.
I want to say no, but yes. talking about the directors of the project, no chance in hell that they're gonna do it. Square as a company, absolutely. They're already starting. There's already one mobile game. There is another mobile game coming, which is like the actual remake of everything. And there's gonna be another mobile game. There's gonna be a Dirge mobile game. There's gonna be a freaking ton of stuff around 7 that nobody has any control over, and it's gonna be not great. And I just hope that people can mitigate the damage. But yes, it will be the same because they you haven't played Kingdom Hearts yet, H-Bomb. You don't understand. You don't. You have to. You have to follow a plan. You have to make a 3-month plan to play Kingdom Hearts. Otherwise, you're lost. It's an amazing journey, but you have to do it, and you have to buy everything. And it's so many different
Oddly
games.
enough, the thing I wish that, well, I say I wish because I'm not a massive Kingdom Hearts fan. I have been put off the series from its grown reputation. The primary entries look incredibly fun. Even some of the spin-off games look really fun. But the plot is just something I've decided, nah, I know not to invest in this by now. And I always got the impression it's odd that you say the 3-month plan because I feel like it's the sort of thing that they could have done with a 3-month plan before they started the whole thing and gone, right, this is what Kingdom Hearts is going to be, and then we just stick with it. Whereas it's just grown and evolved, and therefore we need a DS game, we need a 3DS game, we need a PSP game that's different from the 3DS game, and they both have plot things you need to understand the sequel to the main game. And oh, we're going to start releasing books as well, by the way. And you know, like it's Square is going down that direction.
Yeah,
Square
we're gonna make a mobile game that is a gacha game that also has very important cutscenes that play 1,000 years before the main scenario happens.
They
so,
had a email leak, I think, at Square recent, and it was god awful. But I don't think too many people would like outside of the niche, you know, hardcore like we are noticed or paid too much to it. But it's some emails like between the higher up execs where they basically admit the quality of the game isn't important if the sale figures are exactly the same. And they want to set aside part of their annual budget for NFTs. So
they have. There's already
it's just like, well, this is who's in charge of the company. Like,
they released a new cloud statue that is $30 more expensive than any other statue because you get an NFT that is worth $30. And you have no choice. If you want a statue, you're buying the NFT. Square is doing that. It's from the president. It's very funny because as a 14 player, we were all like, don't do this to us. And then Yoshida-san goes like, no, because 14 is an old game and it just doesn't work. We can't make it work. I'm like, yes, you can, but you don't want to. And I love you for that. There is a lot of pushback from the creative teams in Square. There's a war going on between Business Square and Creative Square, and it's felt throughout all of their franchises. It's why they sold off most of their Western studios because they're underperforming, making billions and trillions of dollars. They're still underperforming. There's a war going on in Square Enix, and depending on who wins, we're gonna lose or we're gonna win. I hope we're winning, but
and even if the creatives kind of win it, there's still a lot of things go wrong.
Yes.
Whereas if I think of one of the creative teams at Square, the Final Fantasy 11, there is no denying the creative team love that game. They're still tweaking today. 25 years. It would have been shut down by most other MMO by now, sort of thing. It is undoubtable that they love and care about it. They have taken some wrong turns along the way, though. So it's still a possibility, sort of like how I'm sure Nomura loves Kingdom Hearts, but you know, Part 3 still.
But he's still making Hearts 3, yeah.
And he's like, I always see it's a bad sign when a franchise, when even the people who love the franchise say they hate the major entries in the franchise.
I don't hate it, but it is not on par of quality to the rest of the series. It is not. That is sadly the truth.
But it can so easily go either way at this point.
Yeah.
7 already danced that. Remake already danced that battle by going into dev hell because the initial playtest. It's part of why I think they confined it. Either why they confined it to Midgard, or Midgard, it was still only about a 30, 40 hour game where the side content was a hard mode and things that are kind of easier to eke out from a developer perspective, because they had to redo it because fans or the playtest didn't like it.
Yeah.
And they're smart enough to know they can't balls up the 7 remake, so they definitely 100% care. But there's still things in remake that I was like, don't need that. So I think that's the way the short questions.
Yes, we need to speed through some of these answers. Let's see. So my next one, we've possibly kind of covered. Daimorty, do you expect us to play 2 timelines, one with Zack's story? If so, do you think it'll be integrated like Final Fantasy VIII's flipping back and forth? I think we kind of hit that one earlier.
We did, and it's a big topic. When I saw the end credit scene, I thought it's going to be 2 timelines. They're going to be separate, and then maybe something happens in between, like a meeting in like a white space. It's like, Zack, I remember, I'm Cloud, you're Zack, and then hug it out, and then they're going to go their separate ways and whatever. Now with the end of intermission, it looks more like, wait, is Zack actually in the actual Sector 5 church after Sector 7 falls? Is this actually the OG timeline? What are they doing? And that's where I'm at. And I'm like, what the hell are they doing? And you could theorize about that for 3 days and not come up with the correct answer.
They've intentionally left it the way it is to do this to us.
Oh, they know what they're doing.
Of course. And then on the other side, Tomato, with the Avalanche characters being seemingly being alive after the plate comes down, do you expect their stories to become something bigger as we travel across the world map? Because it's probably not going to be a world map. How could they be integrated into the main events?
I think I touched on this the last time we did 7 Remake podcast, where 1, I don't have a clue who is and who isn't alive and what timelines those are. Because, okay, Jessie dies in her arms. That's in our timeline. Yes. Cool. Her gloves are on Biggs's freaking hospital bed in the post-credits.
Yep.
Not sure what timeline that's in. 2, Wedge also survives, except he starts talking to mysterious Force ghosts who then shatter him out of a window. I don't know. It cuts to black. We don't know. So that's in this timeline. So he could be alive or dead. Jessie, I think's dead. Biggs, we also see die, but we get a post-credits of him in a hospital bed with Jessie's gloves in. They could be in Zack's timeline. They could be in our timeline. Or they could be in the timeline when they walk through the shiny portal thing. We don't have a clue. I think if they're going to be in it, it's going to be at moments like revisiting Midgar.
Let me put on my tinfoil hat.
We're
going to be Jessie in the Golden Saucer as a dancer, and she's not going to remember Cloud and Tifa and Barrett.
That would confirm we're in a different universe kind of thing.
Yeah. She's just going to be there dancing her butt off, and it's going to be like, you're alive! Who the fuck are you guys? What? And then Aerith's going to be like, yeah, by the way, I really screwed with the time, so I have no idea what's happening next.
I don't think Aerith would reveal that at that point. I think she would... They would just have to play ignorant.
Yeah, no, that's like...
I've played enough anime games. I've played Xenoblade games. All of the characters act like they're fucking got an IQ of 50 until they go, oh, wait, sorry, I realised that my backstory is really relevant to this. And if you knew this, we wouldn't have had to do all of these side quests. That
is a JRPG trope. It's like,
that's
I don't know. Oh, so the script tells me I have to know. Here's the information the script has. Like, it's just like, why did you tell me this not like 80 hours ago? This is a 150-hour game.
I feel like they're going to eke that out, if they do it like that.
Okay.
But I agree, they could easily just Jessie in the Gold Sauce.
Yep. Short answer, no freaking clue. Could be anything. They could come back as Muggles for all I care.
I think if they do come back, their role is going to be no greater than the remake. You're not going to play as them. You're going to play 400 against them. You might, they're going to be NPCs. They might have some story.
Yeah.
I mean, I personally think Wedge is going to be like one of those side quest characters that sits on the airship and gives you extra things to do, like hunts or something.
get some food. Can you hunt this exotic animal so I can eat it, please? Yeah.
That makes sense. It doesn't add anything particularly, it doesn't change huge amounts.
Yeah,
I feel like there might be some pull on the whole Avalanche, not the faction that we are, the main Avalanche that we don't really know about, play that mobile game. There might be some, like, if they do the Midgar raid at Disc 2, end of Disc 2, where you drop in, I feel like that's, if anywhere in the story they would play a big part, that would be the big part. Avalanche are also launching an attack on her at the same time. Hey, there's Biggs, look, he's explaining, I'm with these guys, we're helping you. And then they, like, big action sequence.
Yeah.
Everyone's fighting against Shinra together, yay! Like...
Fun fact, the original script for Final Fantasy VII had every character die in that sequence except 3. The original plan was to kill off
keep your party, yeah,
everyone except 3 characters, and then people were like, "No, we can't do that. That's too much." So
I'm curious whether that was that before the Aerith hill off was decided, and
that I don't know. I just know that was the original plan.
Would that be a leftover of, well, we really want to give a sense of significant loss? Because you don't write in a death because you're just like, I don't know.
No, they just wanted that. The idea was for you to be completely defeated.
There. Like, yeah,
hero's journey.
You do that for a reason.
Yeah, you're at your lowest point, hero's journey, then you go out, and then you build yourself up, and then you go defeat the big bad guy in the bubble. Yeah.
Okay. So we've kind of touched on my next question. I ask if Red has been being a playable character in Rebirth. Who else do you expect to become a permanent team member? Now, we've kind of just agreed on all of them. Yeah. But do you expect them to be just like the original or have different abilities? Tomato.
If you say original, like OG game, I feel like, okay, so we've already got Yuffie's gameplay and the potential for the whole party to use synergy things. I think they've tried very much to give each character a very unique style, but eventually they're going to have to deal with the crossoverness of, you need to give some... I feel like Red 13 might be... he'll be very close range, but he'll be a bit of a quicker hitter than Cloud. He might be somewhere between Cloud and Tifa. He might have some reaction stuff like Yuffie does. He actually has a parry and a really good dodge skills and stuff like that. Sid, I think, will play like a Dragoon. They'll make him very jumpy.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's his archetype. Plus, they'll have the dynamite throw ability. And Vincent, I think they will try and... I don't think it will be like Dirge or anything, but I think they'll try and... Like, there's a sequence in Advent Children which I thought was like they're trying to hype up here, where they're fighting the Bahamut Sin, and they linger specifically on Yuffie, longer on Vincent fighting, just jumping around, shooting it. He's depicted very floaty, teleporty. I think they'll embrace that. But otherwise, he might end up a bit boring, like Barrett was, because long range. At least Yuffie goes between the two. But I think they'll stick to the main archetypes, and I don't think anyone really cares what Kate plays like. But it'll probably be magic heavy, because technically it's one of the 3 characters who are slightly heavy. OG. They'll probably give them a lot more to do than... Because he's unfinished in OG. Let's deny it. He goes up to level 2 limit break. That's it.
Yeah.
They didn't quite flesh him out. He's a very odd character in that...
You think?
It's odd that the party keep him around for a point. It's painfully obvious he's a spy because he forces him... it's kind of cool to find out it's Reeve, but it's also then a person who, instead of the resources of Shinra at his disposal, still sticks to the stuffed Moogle with the cat on it. It's still... It's going to play slow and clunky like Barrett. But with
What I
magic.
can say about this is that every character will feel amazing to play. Because they've, especially with Yuffie, they've proven just how much they can improve in one iteration. Now they had more time. I think every character is going to play incredibly well. And there's going to be very nice team attacks.
I think that there might be the problem of if you are determined to just solo Barrett, it'll probably get old, like the OG. It's not that I didn't enjoy playing Barrett, but it was only when I was switching through the party at high speed. Whereas if I was playing as Tifa or Yuffie, I could actually sit content and not switch out because they are that much fun to play.
I mean, they're not gonna. I don't think that they'll do the same thing as in Remake. They're not gonna let you choose at all times. They're gonna let you choose at specific moments, and then other moments, some characters are unavailable for this part because it's not only makes it more interesting because you don't just make one team like you usually do in a Final Fantasy game. It's also so much easier to balance encounters and boss fights if you have to balance them for 4 characters or for 3 characters or for 2 characters than for 6. So I think that
Or
they're gonna do the same thing where there's just gonna be like moments where Barrett, Yuffie, Red not available. You got to do this with this team, which will feel a bit restrictive, but it just makes the game flow better because balancing this combat system for all the other characters is an ordeal. It's gonna take too long. It makes much more sense to have like shorter, more curated fights that are tight and fun, and then give them the battle arena where they can do whatever.
I feel like it's what, like, for the most part, you're 100% right. Like, most of the story sections, like, they will do exactly that, but there'll be a few sections. I'm not sure whether they'll put the Mithril Mines in there, because the most significant things you've got there, I'm sure they'll have the Marsh and some Chocobo stuff, but at most they might have a dungeon with a conversation with Turks. They could cut that out, conversation completely elsewhere. It's arguably a bit they could cut.
It could just be a call.
But if they just do a linear dungeon there, that's the exact sort of place I could imagine there being a. Now you can choose your party.
Exactly.
It's not too important. Oh, you're in Junon. This is all how this is going down. And it follows specifically. Even sometimes it might do more switching between the party members. Like, I feel like we might get more. Oh, this is what your other team are doing, not just what Cloud and Co are doing. Because there's more impetus on the story being a crafted thing where these are the events. Sort of like in the Shinra Tower, you basically are kind of.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. We'll try.
Same abilities.
Let's do some bullet points on my next question for Daimorti, because once again, we've kind of already gone over this. My full question is, the Whispers are like guiding lights telling Aerith where to go. How do we think the Whispers will interact and alter the storyline going forward? So do you have like a bullet point of how you think they will change?
Absolutely.
Well, dead now,
first of all, they were not the guiding lights. They were the opposing force to future Aerith, in my opinion. And 2, they're not going to be in the next in the games. They're dead. We destroyed them. They're not going to show up anymore. The defense mechanism of the planet, like with the weapons, once you kill them, they're gone. This defensive mechanism of the planet is gone. You fucked it. You have to live with the consequences. That's in the trailer here. The past is written, but our future is not. As in, like, you changed it. You killed the Whispers. We can't undo that anymore. Now go forward. That's what I think is the trailer line for. So no, I don't think there's going to be Whispers at all in the next game.
Beautiful. That was a beautiful answer. Thank you so much. Let's move on to the next one. Also aimed at Daimorti. With Yuffie already getting her own DLC, it's looking like Wutai itself will become more of a playable area. Do you have any thoughts or views on this development, and if they'll bring it into the storyline in Rebirth?
Yes, they will bring it in. If not in Rebirth in the last part, a lot bigger. I believe in the last part it will be open world at some point. You'll get the airship. You go wherever you want for a bit. And I think Wutai will play a bigger role because of social commentary. Wutai versus Shinra is the perfect social commentary for the modern day, and they will use that as a creative outlet for their woes, as most artists, most game developers do. I think it will play a very big role, and that is why it was so hyped in a way in the Yuffie DLC.
I feel like it might be it could easily be confined to DLC depending on if they ended part 2
True.
after Rocket Town,
True.
which would be an inexplicable choice for me. That's like a very uneventful place to end it. I would 100% expect Wutai as DLC, but I 100% they kind of already used it to kind of hit home how evil Shinra are by going, yeah, they're blaming it on the Wutai thing, but it still feels like something that's almost take it or leave it. So that's why I think that DLC might be that area, because it doesn't add to Sephiroth, it adds to Shinra, which we've got a lot of Shinra coming up. We've already got a lot of Shinra evil. It's like it adds to it, and it 100% adds to Yuffie's backstory. I don't think it. Yeah, it's a tricksy one.
We'll see. My next question's for Tomato, because I think we've kind of touched on this. We all sort of agree Dirge of Cerberus might happen, but Tomato, do we expect Vincent and maybe Kate Sith to get their own DLCs like Yuffie did, or do you see the Dirge of Cerberus remake instead?
Both. I see them 100% milking much as they can. If they think they can get a Dirge remake and a Vincent DLC, they would. Suplex actually mentioned when I was playing Integrate the Yuffie DLC, someone actually came in and said he wouldn't mind them doing DLC for each individual characters. And it made me think like they could easily do that for probably all of them. It's just what time and place do you set it, and how do you do it? But more, I was thinking they can all afford to have their own focus, because that's why they made Yuffie. I'm curious whether they nerf Yuffie in the party, because part of the reason she plays so well is because you can only play as her. Sonon you can never control. He works great as a companion you can't control, but Yuffie can cover almost everything on her own. So I wonder if they're nerfing it. But it would be nice to see every character definitely given the love and care that she was in the combat, at the very least. Story-wise, there's definitely enough there for a Vincent DLC, and each character have their own. This is what they could do it like a Gladius in 15. If there's ever points where the party was absent and they come back because it's not, the most relevant thing, and then they do a DLC to explain they were off doing this thing. Barrett was off dealing with Dyne, and that's a way they could skip a chunk of the story, is by saying, no, you don't meet Dyne or do all of that stuff with the gold source. You just visit it and hit up some minigames, then you move on. And the Barrett DLC is actually what Barrett was doing when he goes, yo, I'll catch you guys up when you leave.
I really hope they don't do that. I hate the Final Fantasy 15 DLC structure, because it's literally taking out chunks of the story that are fairly important and sold to you after the fact. Years later, nobody gives a shit about those. They didn't sell well. They cost a lot of Metacritic points on the game because people were not fed up, especially the Ignis DLC. It was literally cut out from the disc. Like you can see where the data was cut from, and it was not okay. And I really hope they don't do that. I don't want the Barrett is leaving. Here's the Barrett DLC. I don't want that.
I agree. I don't. I would like it if it was something that once they've properly, like the original DLC were back. We all agree on the direction game devs are kind of going a bit trashy. Not game devs, but
the business side.
The business side of it, where it's cheaper to have the model to go, we're going to have DLC right from the get-go. Whereas the tradition was you'd make DLC because your sales were so good, your team was so good, and you still wanted to keep adding.
That is long dead.
Yeah, that's gone because they planned for it from the get-go now, and even that.
Oh yeah, the DLCs are planned out already. Yeah, I just hope that they're not chunks in the middle of the game.
Oh yeah, but that was just cool. But like they're planned in start.
Yeah.
So like I'm 100 sure we're just getting more and more of that going on. There's just no stopping it.
Yeah.
Croesus made a joke, if they make a DLC for Kate Sith, I hope they're prepared to lose money. They'd be throwing away money. His least
Possible.
favorite
It's just
character.
Reeve
Or they
doing,
could come out with
paperwork.
amazing story that was only ever conceptualized before OG and then cut because they didn't have time, and it's suddenly the best character ever.
No, it's going to be a
Surprises
mobile
happen.
game.
Sounds like effort.
It's a
Mobile game,
mobile
yeah.
game. It's
Kate
a
Sith-
mobile game,
yeah,
and it's
yeah.
Reeve doing paperwork in the
Yeah,
Shinra
it's
building.
papers, please, but
It's
Reeve.
It's just like
Rebuilding.
Fallout Shelter or something. And
Yeah,
it's
he's
just
rebuilding
Shinra
Sector
HQ
7, yeah.
management, and you just have rooms.
And then Heidegger comes in, it's like, your cowardice reeks.
You have annoyed Heidegger. -4 happiness.
Yeah.
And it's like things like that. Yeah, that'll be it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then if you spend $250 on the game, you see the cutscene where Zack, confirms everything, and yeah.
I'd
No.
I'd play that.
Oh, and then there'll be some weird crossover and more stuff with. Well, there'll be more stuff to hint at Final Fantasy X, which is a connection I've never liked, and there'll be a crossover with a random other Square franchise that this has no connection with. It won't really touch too much upon the story, but it will be there.
By
It
the
will
way,
just be there for fun.
Final Fantasy 16 is the story of the Cetra fighting Genova. Did you know?
Internally, it's
Yeah.
all in his head. That's...
Okay. Dimorty, if they make a Turk spin-off, where do you think that would fit into the storyline, and what would it entail?
They are either going to make a Yuffie-style Turk spin-off where you follow Reno and the gang, especially Reno. You're gonna have Reno's butt on your screen all day long. And you just follow like the story beats of the original game, like finding them in the Mithril Cave and all the other things, like warning them, following them, being like the sneaky buggers. I think that's the way. Or they just use the novels. There is already a novel that is just side content for Turks. Yeah.
Well, it's already a mobile game.
Yes, also that. Yeah. Forgetting about that.
They can easily do it like Crisis Core as well, with a lot of generic missions that have nothing to do with the main plot, but you're just doing stuff for Shinra, and then it might hint at stuff like Wu Tai or
it could be a prequel to the Turks, how the Turks came to be. It could be a lot of things. Reno is such a fan favorite character, and Rude as well. A DLC about their backstory would sell lots. Could ruin the characters, but would sell lots.
It's just them at the Turtles Paradise on vacation.
Neon says, I would like my lore on Red X and how he got captured and put into the Shinra building. The Turks captured him, I bet. Yeah, I bet. Yeah. I always say Red X even though it's Red 13, but you know.
Yeah, maybe something like this. I totally agree with you though, Tomato, that not everything has to be explained. There needs to be mystery. The mystery part of Final Fantasy VII is one of the things that makes it so amazing. So not every single detail needs to be explained.
I just feel like Square, especially if you consider Kingdom Hearts, where you realize how much of an earner mystery is compared to closed whole answers. Like it's undeniable. Having your fans constantly talking about what's going to happen to people, where can they take it from here? Are they going to do a spin-off? Having people talking about your thing is good, always good. They're going to embrace it, and it's what they're doing. I think.
Like right now,
we're encouraging it.
Yeah, we're helping them. God damn it,
Yes.
we're part of we're cogs in their
Cogs
machine.
in the machine, yeah.
We're cogs in their hype machine. We're falling into the trap.
Hey, we could justify this to get Rebirth free.
Yes, Square. How about you sponsor H-Bomb? Have you seen how much work she puts into your damn games?
Yeah, we've made at least like 20 sales right here tonight.
That's true. Okay, my next question
tonight is make Swiggle angry, but yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
My next question, I'm gonna have to say something beforehand because I personally don't know anything about Crisis Core. I am very much looking forward to Crisis Core Reunion. And my question is, now that we know that Crisis Core Reunion is coming out, do you think they'll change anything in that compared to the original to keep it in line with the new iteration of Final Fantasy VII? Are there
Yeah, I think-
any way you can answer these questions
Yes,
without
I mean we already
ruining it
did.
for
We
me?
already
Yeah,
we
we
already
did.
answered
think
it,
we
right?
have?
We both Tomato now on the same page. They're not going to change anything. It's going to be end credits, and that's going to be the
If
big
they
reveal.
do.
If anything,
If they do.
if they do it, it's going to be end credits. And I think maybe 1 or 2 lines from Sephiroth are going to be changed in like slight ways to like kind of nudge you along. But no, it's going to be a 1-to-1 remake.
Or maybe
Okay.
they've added some new side quests that aren't.
I really hope not. There's so many already.
So many, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Tomato, do you expect the gameplay mechanics to be the same as Remake, or do you think they'll refine anything?
I think they'll, like we again already answered earlier, I think they'll add synergy attacks from the Yuffie thing. They would be kind of mad not to, because they were super fun. Seriously, so much fun. And combo attacks are a huge fan favorite. The fact that it gives you something else to unlock as you're going, so endorphins, yay. And then you get huge cool animation time, which everyone loves. I feel like they're going to maybe embrace some slightly newer materia ideas that they've already touched upon, to be honest. Things like, like things that affect the ATB rather than just like, here's a magic with an element and elemental defense. You compare them. I think there might be things like an ATB lesson materia, which shortens the use or the consumption that a materia action uses, and maybe the opposite, where a materia, an ATB strengthen, which will increase the power of the thing you're using if you opt to use it, but it will consume 2 ATB charges instead of 1. And they'll be like magnifier. They'll be on a toggle where you can alternate if you want. I think they might refine Barrett. He's arguably the slowest player on Remake. I feel like Cloud, Tifa actually hold on to their own, but they might just need to give a bit more variety to how they can act. Tifa's almost like she's got a bit of variety with her tiered moves, things. I think they're going to take away some of our abilities, but leave us with a few, and then we're going to re-unlock some of them. So we feel stronger than we did at the start of Remake, but not as strong as the end. But I also think they'll use the flashback as a tutorial, so Cloud can be no materia Cloud. Here's how to play for no one who's played it before. Yada yada yada. Also, look how powerful Sephiroth is. I don't know whether we'll be allowed to control Sephiroth. That'll be very, very,
No,
very, very...
no. Absolutely.
We never were in the OG, but
They would never do that. Never. If
just for, like,
anything, at
5
the end of the game, you
seconds.
can play him as like an arena character, or maybe as a DLC. But I don't think you can play him in the game. That would destroy so much mystery of the character. You're just gonna see him one tap every single boss.
Yeah.
You're gonna see the snake that he kills, that everybody tells you is unbeatable. Just these amazing things that they did in the original to set up the mythos of Sephiroth without ever mentioning him. Just like, oh, Sephiroth just killed a snake. Oh, cool. Okay. I needed to get.
Yeah, I feel like that Mid-Gazolan we're gonna see.
Yeah.
I feel like it might be a boss that we fight. It takes all of the party to take out, but then it reveals, yes, did that one-handed with a blindfold on, and he was doing somersaults the entire time. So,
yeah,
look how amazing he is. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
We have a question from Neon. I would really like to touch real quick.
Yes.
How are they going to handle the weapons? The weapons are going to be in part 3, in my opinion. The weapons are going to be in part 3, and the weapons are going to be massive kaiju fights like we're seeing in Final Fantasy 16 at the moment. And I'm so down for that. I think they're going to be Shadow of War, God of War, Final Fantasy 16 style, mega bombastic kaiju battles, each different than the other ones. And they're going to feel amazing, and I'm down for it, but that's my theory, yeah.
I feel like they could vary the size of the weapons, which they do in the OG anyway. Ultima changes that depending on where you're fighting him. I think there might be some hints at the Dirge stuff, just because you mentioned weapon. The only thing I agree, weapons won't come until part 3, but there might be some Dirge groundwork laying for the whole Omega weapon thing. Yeah, that's otherwise that's pretty spot on. I feel like we're going to get maybe somewhere between the big fights of 15 and it's almost like a extreme end, like when you fight the Fates at the end of Remake, to the point where you've got sequences fighting and you've got sequences almost going around the creature or traversing.
But I think it's going to be
scenery.
even bigger. You can see in the 16, the tech that they developed for those kaiju battles is insane. You have like full-size battlefields with like thousands of NPCs and you at your feet. It's going to be really cool if they go this way, which I think they will.
But almost like the Monster Hunter fights that try and be at a greater scale, and they always kind of fail in Monster Hunter. A completely different studio, by the way. But
because they don't work, because they're not they're trying to shoehorn something into a game that doesn't work. And I feel like they've already proven that these like bombastic like cutscene battles can work very well with like Sephiroth at the end. So
I mean, Sephiroth worked all right, but I feel like I was talking about this because I thought it made some part of Remake easier. It definitely doesn't make it less cinematic. It adds to the cinematic tenfold. They do it in every boss battle, but you've got these moments where you hit the health bar moment, everything stops, you get a bit of a cutscene, you're interrupted kind of in your progress, but you get to see something cool and they progress to the second phase. And in the longest instance, that's the end fight. I don't think Sephiroth, because it's quite succinct. There are phases, but it's just there. The fight before that, Fates, where it's like, fight 3 little things, fight a big thing, run along a bit, fight a little. That's more how I imagine it. And it's definitely worked on the scale and cinematicness, but I won't lie, as far as a fight goes, it wasn't like the most... Hooray! Like, I think Rufus was one of my favourite fights in Remake. Outdid that. And it was almost just pure, like, tight combat. They did the cutscene, but it was just back to the combat, whereas those drawn-out things...
I think the weapons are just going to be massive cutscene battles.
Yeah,
they're not going to be difficult like in the OG. They're just going to be giant cutscene fiestas where you can just feel amazing and awesome for a bit. And then there's a hard mode afterwards where you have to think about it. But they're going to be like cutscene battles, I think. And they're going to look amazing.
You see, me and Crosis are kind of thinking, what about those extra weapons that went in the version that... I can't remember what we called that version. The one that wasn't the Japanese version, and we had Ruby, and they were extras. Do you think they'll be part of the OG storyline, or do you think they will be like an extra boss fight that you can optional do?
I think you're going to get your airship. The weapons are going to come out and you're going to go around the planet defeating all the weapons. I think that's the part when the game opens up. Like the moment the weapons activate is the part where the game opens up, you get your airship and you get to actually see a world map for the first time. And then you get to go to the places, fight Ruby, fight Diamond, fight all these weapons. And when you fought all the weapons, then the story continues. I don't think they're going to be optional.
Very interesting.
I can see them sticking to the story there. Sapphire gets taken out by the cannon. You might fight with it along the way, but it still ultimately gets taken out by the cannon.
I think you're going to just fire the cannon, yeah? Like you're going to be on the cannon, or you're going to be like weakening Sapphire, getting him in the right position, and then boom, you see the cannon. And it's just like particle porn, and it's going to feel amazing. I'm so down for it.
I feel like Diamond's still going to attack Midgar, and you'll probably still fight with that. But again, the cannon probably does the main thing. Ultima, you definitely fight several times in the story anyway, and they leave the final fight with it to be optional anyway. They'll probably do a heads up to that. The kind of iconic cutscene. It's like Doomgaze from 6. You know, it's chase the thing around the airship on the map. They'll probably have a homage to it, even if we don't have a world map to use it. I think, as well, Ruby and Emerald were considered obviously the big super bosses, so we'll still have some form of them. There is the vagaries of how many there are, because I always got confused as a kid, because then Sapphire confused me. Because you thought there were 4 emerging at the end. There's definitely 4 that emerge at the end of the sequence at the Northern Crater, but there's also several that turn up and bugger off before that. And I think there's one still unaccounted for that they never go on about. And it's just a bit hard to tell. But if it's 5, then it makes sense. It all adds up. But if it's 6, then there's a spare weapon.
Okay. This wasn't a question. Let's move on.
Yes.
Stop,
So
chat. Stop.
we were just talking about the gameplay mechanics. So my next question based on that is, are there areas of the gameplay that you would prefer them to amend in any way? And if so, what? That's for either of you.
If a single enemy in Rebirth goes into a cutscene after I fill a stagger gauge to 99% and it gets reset, when he gets out of the cutscene, I'm gonna throw my controller against the wall. That is the most infuriating thing in the
They
OG
started
remake.
to address that in
They did,
Yuffie's
but if it's
DLC.
happened, like it can't happen.
still
Like it's
happens.
the
It still
most
happens.
infuriating thing. You build your stagger gauge. Either you get your stagger, you deal damage, cutscene, your stagger is gone. You're like, motherfucker. Or you build your stagger gauge. You're like, I don't want to stagger you now. I'm gonna wait for ATB. Cutscene. Your work is done. It made boss fights a trillion times harder because you never had any clue. Like it was like once you know it's okay, but for the first playthrough it felt horrible, and I hope they change it. The other thing, casting time. I hate that the Raga skills, that the higher level skills, the difference is you just stand there casting for 5 seconds. And then you get bigger damage. I hate that. It doesn't make sense.
Still costs more. It should take like a bit longer, but not that long.
Yeah, it should have like an animation to it or something, or like something you have to achieve towards it. Make it a button press for all I care. But don't be like, you're gonna stand still for 10 seconds, but also every character that is active instantly gets attacked by range attacks and staggered. Like the amount of spells you lose because you just get staggered out of them and you don't have control over it, just because randomly this one spell takes longer. And with how the ATB economy works, especially in the later fights, you have to use Curaga. You know, you have Curaga on Magnify to hit all your targets. You have to use Curaga, right? Because otherwise you're not gonna have enough health. Freaking Bahamut, Mega Flares, and your characters are dead. And then you get staggered out of it, and that's it. You have no way of recovery because it's all bound by ATB. You don't get ATB if you can't use a character. With like Aerith and stuff, you can't use Aerith most of the time because the moment you switch to Aerith, every mob in the game is like laser, and she just gets staggered out of everything. So you can't really. That's why, like, the way I beat the game was just like haste, haste, haste. Everybody has haste, so I can actually do things because you're gonna get staggered half the time, and I just don't like it. The concept of the material leveling up and on the spells leveling up in every Final Fantasy is like your character gets stronger, you get access to higher level spells, and you use them, and not like you like. It feels like a punishment. Like you did your job, you leveled your materia, and now you get the big spells, and then you get punished by having to wait like 3 to 4 seconds, potentially getting interrupted. So I hope they change that. Those are my
Square
biggest
have always had
gripes.
a trouble with doing difficulty in action games, because Remake, and even the most difficult fight I had in Integrate DLC was one of the first fights where it was against a couple of wolf enemies. It was a story fight, so they were a tiny bit stronger. They made the DLC a bit more succinct. There were less easy battles and more sort of milestone battles. But they had, and this is the sort of move that sums up Square and action games as a whole, is they had a charge move that was very awkwardly timed. Got a charge up, then the enemy charges towards you, but also it automatically tracks towards you, and it's not as fast as it looks. So if you dodge, it's very easy to dodge too early, and it does about 800 damage HP, and Yuffie at that point he had 2,500. And there were 2 of these enemies, so if they did that 3 times in a row, I was almost next to dead. And I didn't die once to any of the later boss fights. I was still kind of learning my legs with the system,
Yeah.
but I, like, obviously Square can make 100% successful action. Done so before, but I personally have never quite gotten on their idea of difficulty in them. They seem to, because OG Remake I didn't consider difficult at any point either, and it was just the bits where I would do worse or I'd have to reattempt it was usually down to some mechanic that was kind of, oh, I shouldn't have done that then. They can all interrupt that. Oh, I switched to a character and the AI, instead of sticking on my allies for a few seconds like they tend to, happen to all just decide to plow on me at the
Yeah.
same time, and it stacked up. And because that first hit, you can't dodge out of it, you can't hold guard anymore. It's happening now. You're just stuck. Square action games, unfortunately, just reek of these things. And
Yeah.
I think it's because I enjoy games like Dark Souls, where the difficulty feels so much more satisfactory coming from things like iframes and timings, that when you run into a square action RPG, and let's face it, they're usually RPGs, so they're trying to balance not just the rolling mechanic, but also, oh, but you can level up and just get stronger.
Yeah.
Or, oh, you're under-leveled and therefore everything hits harder.
Yeah.
There's just a certain lack of balance to it that has... Some playthroughs you'll feel like it's the easiest thing on the planet with no difficulty. Some playthroughs you'll feel like it's trying to just tick you off. It's not hard, but it's trying to tick you off.
Exactly. There is fights. Oh, sorry.
No, it's more like you don't feel like you've had a difficult fight to be killed. It feels like you've done well in a fight, and then the game's gone. Not
Absolutely.
today.
Yeah, in Remake, you have like 3 main types of fight. You have the normal fights where you can do whatever. You have the gimmick fights where if you don't know the gimmick, sorry, like the fight against Rufus, like use triple slash to have the dog not be, to make the dog beatable, then kill the dog, and then Rufus is easy. If you don't know, you're just gonna get counter. Also, Rufus just counters
was
everything.
A parry fight.
So
that was a parry off.
Yeah, just parry is like Rufus parries everything. Maybe you should parry as well. And if
The
you don't figure
just
out
there.
yeah, if you don't figure out the gimmick, then you lose. Like and then you have the fights where there's just unfun mechanics. It's just like annoyances, like the flying Shinra helicopter troopers. They're not difficult. They're just annoying because you're not playing with Barrett. You have Cloud in that situation and Tifa. You have wind, but you're casting wind. They move. Your wind doesn't do damage. Also, mechanic they should probably change, like stationary magic. Good for the player when it's get used against them. Bad for the player if they want to use them. So like wind. Okay, ATB, wind. Nope. Wait, I'm dead because he couldn't. I'm dead. Okay, restart. Okay, this time I got the stagger easy. As well as the shield guys, it's like transient, like unblockable electric damage that goes through walls. It's like, okay, so next time I'm just gonna like insta nuke them, and then you do that. Like it's just, yeah, it has been an issue with every Square game they make. They're not good at making action combat, which is probably one of the main reasons why Final Fantasy 16 went and got the Capcom battle director, because they were like, Capcom knows how to make action games. We don't. Let's make Capcom games.
I don't think they're going to do too much to fix the things we've sort of started ranting about.
Yeah, not in
I think
Rebirth,
Square is still through and through Square.
They were too deep into development already. Like the fundamentals are there, and they're not going to change the fundamentals. I just hope that they make a few adjustments. No cutscene stagger nonsense.
No, I think we're full on getting segments where we only have melee characters and the enemies are entirely ranged. I think they're that silly, and I think all game devs for some reason seem inexplicably that silly. Sometimes
I played half of Exile. I know this.
They just don't. I mean, obviously, I'm talking from it's an opinion, yada yada, but this feels like a very popular opinion that ranged enemies in melee games are more annoying than fun. Now, it's great when you're young and you overcome the challenge. Great, yeah, that's done. When you're a sort of jaded older gamer and you come across this, you just go, again? I have to chase this again? Yeah. Game, this isn't fun. You're annoying me rather than presenting me with fun.
Yep. And then they give you counter stance and you're like, oh.
I'm going to sit here and
why not give that to me in the first 10 seconds of the game? Because now I'm just doing oh, you're casting a spell? Counter stance? Okay. You're doing a ranged attack? Counter stance? Okay. And it just completely negated everything. So yeah, a lot of balance changes will be done. The way
I think they'll keep it still like it is, though. It's almost got a bit of a spirit of the original game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where you can kind of do it your way because it's they don't pile on the difficulty too much unless you do the hard mode stroke outright do all of the battle arena stuff to the very end. You can very much, I want to cast fire, when it's more efficient for you to sit around using Braver or Triple Slash. You can still kind of do that because you've given abundant. It's more the game will corner you into, you've got no ATB now. Like,
to go back to other areas of that answer, just to throw another one in, Neon says, personally, I don't like how many NPCs can sometimes talk over each other. It makes some cutscenes harder to follow.
That is an issue with every modern video game, because the way the triggers are spaced out is in a very particular way. They don't want to force you to stand still and listen to everything, so they trigger on range, and then you leave the range, they get quieter, so you don't miss it if you want to listen to it. It's a problem of modern action games that is hard to solve. Outside of this is a conversation we want you to listen to, your character won't move anymore. So
they do a lot of it in 7 Remake as well, where they enforce, okay, you're going from place A to B. There's nothing going on between A and B except your character's talking, stroke, even long periods of silence where NPCs around you are talking. But we're going to make you walk at a very, very slow pace and occasionally stop because Tifa decided to stop and say something to you, so you need to stop.
Yeah, it's a game design decision to make it so that when you then hit A on a character to talk to them, that line plays in the background still. It makes it hard to hear, but it also doesn't take you out of the immersion, because if you were to just cut voice in the background the moment you start a cutscene, modern game design has gone away from that, because it is a cut. It is you're in a video game, right? Because I press the button, the voices stop, I'm now in this cutscene. That's why they're going away from it. It is annoying. I totally agree. I don't appreciate it. They've tried to fix it a little bit with like lowering the voices the moment you enter a conversation, but yes, sometimes it happens. It is a symptom of modern game design that will need fixing, and people are probably working on a fix.
The solution is to have the impromptu ones that happen as you walk around without talking to an NPC. They part of the problem is they happen to add immersion, so people will just say things as you walk past. You need to lessen the number of them and go back a step and start adding back in the more of the NPCs you can prompt for.
Yeah, it's also important to realize
crossover. People who want to sit and have that extra moment can, but the people who are, quite frankly, often like me, just going, well, I'm in an area, I've got a run button. Why am I not going to run? And you sprint through, and you get 1,000 NPC dialogues coming from different directions.
Because the area was designed differently.
You won't get that because, there's less.
Yeah, and also you have to keep in mind that there is a big problem with localization. There is a very, very big reason why some speedrunners will change language in their game, because some languages are shorter than others. So if you make a Japanese game, and maybe in Japanese, if you walk the normal speed to an NPC, everything lines up perfectly. You translate it to English, it doesn't line up anymore. But what do you want to do? Do you want to mistranslate everything? Do you want to change everything for every language that you might localize? Localization is extremely expensive already without having to change anything. If you have to change things for specific versions, it gets astronomically expensive, prohibitively expensive, to the point where a lot of indie developers cannot do more than 3 languages. It is not possible. English, Spanish, French. That's it. They can't finance more. So there's a lot of issues there.
Let's move on to a question about limit breaks. Tomato, do you think we'll start to see more limit breaks such as Blade Beam and Seal Evil in Rebirth, or should we expect them as an ability like how Braver was in Remake?
I think a bit of both. I think in those 2 examples, I think Blade Beam, they could both go either way. Blade Beam could easily be a high level target 1 disperse damage limit break like it is already, but they could easily weaken it. Clint Hazard is the big limit break for part 2. Seal Evil as well. Again, silencing and stopping enemies. They'll probably change the use of it slightly. It could easily go either way, but I think we'll see both, and I think we'll see every OG limit break in some form.
Mm-hmm.
Like every single one, and then basically. just like part 1. Balancing that, yeah, you can balance it either way. I don't know if Blade Beam feels more iconic than like Seal Evil, but it's no Omni, so.
Okay, and then on to summons. Which ones do you expect Rebirth to include?
That
for either
is
of
an
you.
incredibly difficult question to answer, because summons in Final Fantasy Remake are an afterthought. You know, you just randomly find summons laying around, and then you have the AR battles. It's like they designed the combat system, and then they were like, "What about summons?" Well, you periodically get them if you take critical damage, and when we decide that you get them, okay, how do they acquire them? Hojo's VR dojo, I guess. And sometimes there's just random Moogle materia behind a fan.
Jesse give you the
Maybe
first
Jesse
one.
gives you Ifrit. Makes sense. Maybe, I don't know. Yeah, it was definitely an afterthought. So I hope that with a more open world, they decide to go back to the OG, where some is optional and you just go. You know, you grow your chocobo, you go get rounds of Night Table and stuff like that. I hope that is the case, but it is very hard to answer. We have no information about it. If they just are afterthought again, then you'll just randomly find them, randomly get them, randomly earn them, and then it's anybody's guess whether it's in. Of course, the OG Final Fantasy staples, they're going to be there. Titan, Garuda, Bahamut, Ifrit, they're going to be there. If they go with the optional ones or the more out there ones, I don't know. Knights of the Round Table, I saw somebody ask it in chat as well, I think has to be in the game because it is incredibly important Cetra lore. Like the Cetra used them to defeat Genova, so they're integral to the story, in my opinion. So I don't think they're gonna. They might not have the same like grow a chocobo, go there, fight them, get them kind of aesthetic to them. Maybe it's easier. Maybe somebody just tells you about it and then you find it in the next room. But I think now Knights is gonna be there. Yeah.
I think they'll bring back the existing roster, but we'll unlock it in tiers just as before. You know, Choco, Mog, Ramu, then Titan, then Ifrit, then all the way up to Bahamut. I think we'll have basically more of the roster, so including Titan and maybe Kajata. But I think, so if you think of the OG summons and split them into tiers of 3, you've got a tier up to Bahamut, you've got a tier up to Neo Bahamut, and you've got a tier up to the end and Zero Bahamut. I wouldn't be surprised if they just stick to the main roster, adds a few more from the later sort of stages, and when you get Bahamut in Rebirth, a fun little twist for people is that it looks closer to Neo Bahamut than, or it is Neo Bahamut outright rather than regular Bahamut, and that serves as a final summon for part 2, and then same again with part 3 with Zero. Yeah, I agree. They have to do Night Round. They're not doing it, but it's how I almost think it might not be a summon. It might be a lore thing and a boss. You know, they're gonna do something. It's just necessarily be the out and boss killing summon that we come to expect.
It could be a bit like maybe Knights of the Round could be one of those things where Odin in 8 would just appear, and it's not necessarily something that you collect, and you know there's a chance that it could appear in the future, but it's something that could be, like you say, a storyline item, where something has occurred and therefore maybe Aerith has forced it to come into fruition during a particular big boss or something, and that's the time that you see it, and that's it.
Yeah. They could also make it like a part 3 thing, where in part 3 when the weapons arrive, you like go around gathering strong materia to fight them, and then you have like kaiju battles, like giant Bahamut versus giant diamond or something like this, and you have it like that, very reminiscent of 16, maybe, who knows. It's up in the air, as I said. Like in the OG, it's an afterthought. Like it's just like, oh, you want Leviathan here, just fight him, whatever. Hojo says you have it now. It's like, by the way, we can just create summon material. It's like, okay, cool.
They don't. It's almost tacked on to the OG as well, though, wherein they're introduced as materia of, like, is it beings who have such great will or something? But just like any materia, it's coalesced over time. It's Mako energy. But because macro energy is life force energy, is it a particular? But they don't really go into it. They kind of vaguely go, oh, summon materia. You can summon spirits from the blah blah blah. Blah. They don't. Really, it's not part of the story of 7. Never was. It's not like 10 or 9 where summons are an integral part of the lore of the world that you're playing. You could remove summons from Final Fantasy VII entirely, and the story would be exactly the same.
Yeah. I mean, that's literally what Remake as well. It's just like, here, this is summoning materia. Do you know how to use it? You remember I was a soldier, right? Like, that's it. It's like, okay, explained. It's like, huh? Why do you have this? This is very powerful stuff. Like, why do you use bombs? Just summon Ifrit. Explode half Midgar.
But if they go down, if they're drawing from Advent Children, they might go the opposite way. They might do a Final Fantasy X style. Someone's using some summon materia against you, and that might shed more light. Like in 10, it was obviously there's an explanation for it in 10, but you have an Ifrit versus Ifrit. You just go and get Ifrit, and then someone else who's just gone and get Ifrit goes, "Hey, I bet my Ifrit's better than your Ifrit. Let's Ifrit fight." And it's just like, okay, why?
Yeah.
Well, anyone can grab this giant celestial being. Then it sort of detracts, I think, from the unique. But at the same time,
it does.
10 still has its own way of making them unique.
Yeah. I mean, it's different in every entry. It's whatever. Summons are.
But it's a Final Fantasy game. They're not going to just scrap them. They just might not integrate them.
Yeah, exactly. I think, it could be anything. It's very hard to tell.
Neon has said, maybe we'll get some summon lore in Cosmo Canyon. Booty Hagen will explain all to us. Booty Hagen. Yeah, no, we'll stick with that one, Neon. There's no point in trying to fix that one. Tomato, I'm going to skip one of our questions because we did ask it in the original Final Fantasy VII in-depth one anyway. It was about using Unreal Engine. But we'll go over
they're going to continue using it.
Yeah, I believe they're going to continue using Unreal Engine, and we know that they have a deal with Epic because they released on Epic.
I was excited about the question, but
Were you? Oh, well, it's in our original in-depth.
It's the future of game dev. There is nothing you can gain with your own engine. Unreal 5 is it. Yeah, it's the future. Nanite and Lumen, holy, what you can do with that engine is so far beyond anything you could ever do on your own. Yeah, Rebirth is going to look amazing.
Yeah, I agree. So moving away from that, do you expect we've also kind of gone on this, but Neon also did ask this earlier. Do you expect your characters to have the same level and materia that you collected in Remake, or start anew as an entirely separate game?
They've already gone down the route of it's going on to separate consoles. They're not going to do a save transfer. 100% they're not going to do a save transfer.
It is a JRPG, my friends.
It's a JRPG. They will start you with more, like I said earlier, your party will start with more than you started with in Remake, but less than you finish with. And they'll use Cloud as a very low starting point for the flashback to get a low-level experience game of. They might start them at level 30 or 40. When I was younger, this was the sort of thing that would really tick off my OCD, in that, like, if the level cap's 30, I should be no higher than 30, and I don't want to be level 1 again. Even if the numbers are exactly the same and my HP is now 1,500 instead of 100, there's something about that really didn't appeal to me when I was younger. I don't care at all anymore. Like, they're just going to do whatever they're going to do, and I'm just going to deal with it, you know. Yeah. But I feel like that's kind of the attitude of the developers. Like, there might be some people out there who are very, I really want the exact same levels as my party. Your devs don't care, mate. You're going to start at level 7 again, or 1, and you're going to like it. Or you're going to start at level 40, and you're going to like it. Deal with it.
And we've sort of touched on this, but I want us to be really specific with this one. Which specific areas of the original do we expect Rebirth to spend a lot more time in, like they did with the Haunted Railway section in Remake?
For some reason, I have this 100% feeling that the Chocobo sequence and the marsh sequence isn't going to be you. You're going to need Chocobos to go through the marsh, and it's going to result in the Chocobos getting scared and running away from you, and now you're stuck walking around a marsh with hints of the Zolom sliding around, and it's going to result in a boss fight that either you beat it or you have to run away, get on the Chocobos, make your way. I feel like they could do that to so many areas, but at the same time, they really need to concentrate. Junon, Gold Saucer, Gongaga, Cosmo, Nibelheim, all of Nibelheim Mountains, Rocket Town. Yeah, there's just so much to cover. Or, because they're diverging from the story, they're just going to go off on one.
So maybe because they turned all of part 1 into just Midgar, they had to fill that one out. They had to pad that one out with things like the bigger area of the Haunted Railway.
I feel like they got more leeway to just churn through forward in the story.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Right, so my next question is for Daimorti. Do you think Gold Saucer will feature in Rebirth and be as open and fun than the original? What areas do you think might be missing or less developed?
There is zero chance that the Gold Saucer is not in the game. There's zero chance that it's not in the game. Final Fantasy games love the mini games. Japanese developers love the mini games. I would even go so far as to say Gold Saucer is going to be like a Yakuza mini game fiesta, and an easy 20 hours spent there to just collect saucer coins, MGP, and buy a stupidly overpriced weapon that doesn't do anything, something like that. You know, maybe you can buy Bahamut summon material there. I don't know.
You get decorative items for the buggy that do nothing.
Yeah.
There's 5,000 of them to collect.
Yeah.
Have fun.
The minigames, there's already a lot of minigames in the OG. They're going to be there in like bombastic detail, and they're going to get more. The Chocobo racing will probably be like really big. If they decide to have Chocobo breeding, it's going to be there. You're going to be spending like 20 hours just breeding your Chocobo and riding it there. They love the Saucer. They know the fans love the Saucer. And I think the Saucer is going to be one of the areas where you spend more time in. And maybe they change something with the dating where you just go through more sequences. Because the date is it's a small part of OG, a really small part, but in the context of the new game where they go way more cinematic, like you dating a character, like they did with the Honeybee Inn and the transformation into a female Cloud. I think they're going to spend a lot more time on that and really focus on it, because they really love to focus on these like absurd things from the OG and make them bombastic, and they really love to focus on the party relationships.
That whole play segment is going to be a side quest.
Really?
Well, if you think they've got the setup with Jesse, I'd always wanted to work with Gold Saucer. I feel like because when you date Barrett and not Aerith, actually it might include Tifa, but if you date Barrett in the OG, it skips out part of the date, because they didn't want to be like, here's Barrett and Cloud in a play together, because they wouldn't. I mean, date, but they might go, yo, let's hang out. Yeah. So like, I'm torn. They probably won't give you as much leeway with who does what. I think there's 100% going to be the scenes with the character, just like there are in Remake. You can spend the time with Barrett or Tifa in Thingy's Garden. I think there's an Aerith one, but I haven't seen that one. And she's not actually there, so I'm not sure what happened. Yeah, there's definitely going to be something like that, and I feel like the play, they're going to elongate into a whole side quest of itself, like you being backstage and helping people. Oh, now it's the second act, go on. Like, they'll draw that out as much as they fit, or it will just get cut entirely, but they can't just do the exact same.
No.
I guess
as Paul says... Sorry,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, like they did with the Shinra building, they changed the levels and pretty much streamlined parts of it.
Yeah, that's an area that I really regret that they changed, because just the sheer horror when you get out of that loading screen and you just see blood everywhere in that Shinra building in the OG game. It's not there in the remake, and I really miss it. And I think it's a disservice to new players because it's such like when I was a kid, I saw them like, what? Sephiroth did this? And it's just like, oh, there's some Genova go in the floor. Follow it.
I was also disappointed they changed the sort of the optional floor structure.
Yeah.
Where there's get the next key card, do the task on the next floor, get the next key card. Okay, here's some optional floors if you want some extra goodies. Like they completely
Oh,
streamlined
they ran
that.
out of time. They ran out of so much time.
I'm 100% that's down to the dev helliness kind of thing, but yeah, again, just one of those things that bit disappointing for me.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie.
And as Paul mentioned, the gold sauce is huge in 14. It's the reason some people log in, day out. So I might be biased, but I think the sauce is going to be big in OG as well. Sorry, not OG, in Rebirth as well.
Yeah, I also am agreeing with Neon that the battle arena will be like the Colosseum in Remake as well. So it'll just be continuing on what they've already created in Remake. I'm gonna skip past another question. We had a question about linear areas, making the world map mostly linear like 13, which we've kind of touched on already. I think majority of us don't really believe there'll be a world map that we can just openly travel
the very
around.
extreme, I mean, based on the trailer footage, we haven't seen this, but at the extreme end, we'll get something closer to 15. That's the most open I can see it getting, where you've got a gated area.
Yeah.
It's open here, but there's your exit point to the next bit, and the plot will continue. It's still a linear game, but you've got this place to explore and backtrack to if you so wish.
Yeah, I
don't think they're even going to do that.
It's going to be just like on the OG game. It looks open world. It feels open world. It is not open world. You are following a set path. You're getting the chocobo. You're going through the marsh. You're going through the mine. You think you're in an open world. You think there's a world map, but there isn't a world map until you get like more vehicles in the OG. And they're going to do the same thing, just with more bombastic graphics.
And which area are we most looking forward to from a visual perspective?
Golden Saucer, because I can't wait for the dance numbers they're gonna pull. Because like the Honeybee Inn is perfection, absolute perfection for me. As somebody who is not afraid of, or who doesn't care about gender norms, who you can do whatever you want. I love the Honeybee. I love the aesthetic. I love all of it, and the sauce is just that on like steroids. So I'm very excited for that. And then the Ancient Temple, because it's gonna be a tearjerker.
I think just purely visually, Ancient City, the City of the Ancients, all the conch shells, semi-destroyed stroke houses. They semi-touched upon it in the cutscene in the Shinra building, but I'd rather it was closer to the OG, where it felt like an underwater city that had been drained, and it was like a bit. I know it kind of doesn't make much sense because that's not where the live, but there was definitely a like, whoa! Like even the walk up to it, you're walking through what looks like huge reefs of coral and things like that. I'm looking forward to that a lot, and basically from there till the northern crater, because you've got snow. Snow's always pretty. Icicle, which is a delightful little area. You've got the Great Cliffs of Gaia, which had, even in OG, some very cool colours with vibrant ice sort of hues. And then you've got a freaking, like, what is it, like a Mako? A life stream tornado that's healing the wound that I think is implied to be Genova, the wound from where the meteor or Genova landed, whatever, like way back when. Yeah, that whole everything in from City of the Ancients today is just going to be a visual spectacular.
Because of Unreal Engine 5, Nibelheim flashback when Nibelheim burns is probably going to be one of the most visually stunning scenes with the lighting engine with Lumen.
Yeah.
If the final dungeon in Part 3 is still the Northern Crater completely sort of done over, there's some areas in that were, again, stunning, where you've got like what looks like plants combined with huge chunks of looks like crystallized mako stroke coral stroke. Yeah, there's all sorts going on there. Those are visually the best places.
The art team will be having had a lot of fun. Will have had a lot of fun making this game for sure.
Yeah, I'm personally looking forward to Cosmo Canyon, and when Booty Hagen shows us all of space and goes through that story of everything flying through space, and the G cave, is that what it's called? I can't remember now.
G.
With the big bad guy at the end of it. I think that's probably going to be much better implemented in this more modern version than the sort of almost sort of like platform scroller that we had back then, where you just went back and forth and then up and down for that bit. Yes, Booty Hagen. When we get to the reunion in Crater where you see the weapons coming out the ground, that will, very good point, Neon. That will be amazing as well when that happens.
Think of that structure when Cloud ends up upside down just before he gives Sephiroth Syria, and I think they say it is condensed code, but it's not, because Hojo's there and he's talking about all this wonderful stuff. Think of that. That was stunning, even in OG.
It's all gonna look so good. It's just all gonna look so good in Unreal 5. It's like, it's just gonna look so amazing.
My next question is, who do you expect to fight at the end of Rebirth?
Northern Crater. Here's the materia. Fade to black.
Depending on where they end it, Sephiroth. If they integrate more of deep ground and things, a weird side thought would be them you fighting like an Angeal or a different clone.
Oh god, Darkest Timeline, you fight Genesis and then Vice. Oh no.
Yeah, that's like they could do something a bit wacky like that, but I think they're gonna have regardless of how I phrase it, they're gonna do Genova as Sephiroth or Sephiroth as Genova. They're gonna have a Genova fight and the Sephiroth fight, I think. And it doesn't matter whether we end at the Northern Crater, the Temple of the Ancient, or Nibelheim. I feel like they've got an excuse to just chuck that there, because if they condense enough of the story at one of these places, all of those characters are all going to be there, and they have more than enough writing staff to go, oh, and then this leads to that, which then you fight Genova, and then...
I like how Neon goes tinfoil hat Genesis.
Yeah, what's the version called that survives Dirge? Is it Neo Genesis or whatever? Yeah, Genesis is around. We know it from Dirge.
But they never touch upon it ever again.
Yeah, because it's a Purge the Cerberus. That's my stance. It's so much now, but yeah, Genesis and Vice would be obvious things. Although they did Vice in OG Remake and in the Intermission DLC as a VR fight already, so maybe they just remove that whole like weird ass Hojo plotline that really doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. That's like far right way or far like hard turn if they go into it. Genesis would be an option. And yeah, Dirge is an excuse to play as Vincent. Again, doesn't add huge masses to the plot.
Yeah.
Like everything in that anniversary collection. More just, yay, more 7. Yay. Doesn't matter what we get, just give it.
Yeah, Neon, that is correct. He saves the Vice. After Vice takes over. No, not Vice. No. Doesn't matter. Sorry.
So,
it's so complicated. Keep it in my mind.
Neon was just saying, I think Genesis was last seen alive at the end of Dirge of Cerberus, I think. Yes, so, okay.
Oh, yeah, right. Sorry, audio listeners.
That's for all of the people listening at
YouTube,
home.
Yeah.
Because Vice as Hojo dies and Nero dies.
Yeah, it's like Nero, I can't get it in mind. I actually read it today just in preparation. I forgot about it already because it's so stupid. One of them trusts the other, but then they fusion together, and then Omega takes over, and then it's just one person, and then Genesis comes and like brings them away, and you sit there and be like, huh? Why is he still alive? And it's just like, yeah, because Gacht is superstar. We paid 50 million for his contract. We gotta put him in the game.
We can churn another game out of this. Oh wait, no, we can't.
Yeah.
And then they didn't.
Like I don't want to bash too much on Dirge. Dirge is not like Dirge has a lot of issues from gameplay to story. It's just that the story like eventually just doesn't make sense what happens in Dirge. It really doesn't make sense in the sense of everything in the compilation. It just doesn't make sense anymore. It's just too out there. But also you have Winston, and Winston's just amazing. So maybe it all balances out.
Okay.
That's the point of the whole anniversary.
Yeah.
It's not to make to be like, yay, more.
That's it. Okay, so we're on to our last two questions. Can you believe it? We are on our last two questions, everybody. If anybody has a burning question that you would like to ask us that has not yet been answered, put it in the channel point command now. But we will be wrapping up soon. So these two questions are for everyone, so whoever can answer these. Which boss from the original do you expect to be in Rebirth that's likely more fitting in the third part? This is in context of the fact that Sephiroth was being in Remake when he kind of shouldn't have been.
Sephiroth again?
Yeah. Super, super difficult to answer without knowing how Nomura they go, because if they change stuff in Rebirth, then nothing is off the table.
I don't know what, like, again, it feels like a lot in Remake was testing the waters. So there's the section in Remake where you go and fight, and you save Wedge from Sector 7, which has been fallen on, but it's not collapsed properly. And there's a hole, and you go in, and then you fight these enemies that have the design of, quite frankly, a Devil May Cry game or an anime that is years after Final Fantasy 7. I'm curious if they're going to include more of that or less, because it feels like it was closer to like your Deep Ground kind of style stuff, but at the same time, stylistically, it just was so different. I feel like we're more likely to get a lot more of that than anything too out there. Like, you're not going to see Weapon emerge before the Northern Crater event. You're not going to see. Yeah, I mean, the craziest thing would be to see like a Kadaj or a Genesis fight. Yeah.
We already saw Gadash, but yeah, Genesis or any of the other Dirge characters in the compilation, any of the other Project Gs could be. It's very hard to answer. It's all speculation, and we have no.
Oh no! Wait, Roche.
Oh, I'm sorry. I mean, Roche is definitely going to be in the second part. If not, I will not buy the game.
No one wants him to be in the second part.
No, he has to be. Roche is the best character. I love Roche.
You can't put him in the first part and leave it like that.
I want a sexy motorcycle battle with Roche. I want some sexual tension all the way through. I need that. I love that character. They were like, how do we show new players that soldiers are freaking
nuts?
Like absolutely nuts? Roche. Thanks. A character that is so crazy that their own people have like just deadly fear against them. For good reason, because he kills more Shinra employees than we do in the first part. Yeah, if Roche isn't the end boss of the third part, I'm quitting. I'm quitting gaming. Cold turkey.
He won't be in part 2. I'm kind of torn about it because
Roach party
I
member?
don't like him. I don't like him. He's a weirdly crazy character, but they didn't finish. They didn't finish him.
Yeah, we didn't finish. Absolutely, we did not finish.
He's just such an unleft thread. They can't just leave
Listen, he's my Xenos of Remake, and I love him. I hate him, and I love him, and I just want more of him because I hate it so much that I love it so much.
I just feel like that whole chapter was one they could have done a lot better.
Yeah.
From the bike sequence to Roche himself to exploring Topside would have been. There's so much I'd like to see exploring Topside Midgar, but I can see why you wouldn't, because that's very.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Roche.
Okay. My last question is so open-ended that you guys really could just keep on going for a very long time. So let's see
Let's go.
what hasn't been mentioned at all yet.
I have
What
to go to
are
work.
what
the
are your
problem.
final thoughts on what's to come?
All right. I'm gonna take the tinfoil hat. I'm gonna take the little antennas. I'm gonna put them on. And I'm gonna take neons as well and put that on top. I think for the story that they have written to make perfect sense and to finally destroy Sephiroth, Cloud has to die. Cloud is the link that Sephiroth uses. He has to die. That's my crackpot theory. That it may be in the second part, maybe in the third part, somewhere along the lines, Cloud dies. Maybe Zack is the one that kills him because they don't have a choice. Something like this. And the thing that
you're going from the fact that it's the memories that's keeping it going rather than the Genova cells, then?
it's
Because
both.
if
It's both.
if Zack was alive,
Yeah, that's
he's a
the
Genova
problem with time
cell.
travel. That's the problem with time travel. That's why it's like the most crackpot theory ever, right? It's just my this keeps me up at night. This stuff, like Cloud theoretically has to die for Sephiroth to be defeated, or Sephiroth can never, ever, 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 ever enter the live stream, which we don't know of a way to do this in the context, except maybe shoot him into space. How about reverse meteor, glue him onto it, shoot him away? Doesn't matter. The other theory. The scary part is the most iconic moment in gaming for a lot of people, me included, is the death of Aerith. Genova killing Sephiroth as Sephiroth, killing Aerith is such a heart gut wrenching moment in gaming and so important, and taking that away from people, both OG players and new players, would be such a mistake. It would be hurtful, it would be wrong. But in the story that they're writing, it's what makes the most sense, that you find a way to save Aerith, and then at the end it's like, yeah, but we all still have to die for this to work. And I really hope it doesn't happen. Like I'm afraid. I'm really afraid that they're going to take that moment away from you, that they're gonna not only give you like, you can change the future, maybe you can save her. Like copium, we can save her. And then it's like, wait, I actually saved her. Oh no. Like this, taking this moment away from people is wrong in my opinion, and it shouldn't happen, but it's where the story logically is moving towards, if we take into account like time travel.
You could never, unless there's a change to the meteor kind of deal. Aerith could only ever launch. She sort of intentionally dies, doesn't she? That's the whole point, is that she knows that's kind of going to happen, and that in order to cast Holy, you kind of need to be part of the live stream. I thought that was kind of part of the vibe.
I'm not sure, because she does cast Holy, it just doesn't work because she dies, is my impression that I always got. And then in the live stream, Sephiroth blocks her from doing it until he's defeated, and she can do it. Was the thing I got.
Yeah, well, and then it's the big bit where the live stream helps join in because Holy's not enough. Which is obviously Aerith is part of that, so maybe I'm pounding those two things.
Yeah.
But I feel like, yeah, I agree that her dying is such an iconic moment that they're either if part 2 addresses that scene, they're again going to try and keep it both ways and leave it on a vague note. If there's going to be any extreme 100% concrete changes to the storyline, we're not going to find out they're 100% concrete until part 3 or a side project afterwards. They're going to leave it as vague as possible. Even if Zack's still alive, he won't ever meet Cloud, and the story will continue as normal, because that way they ensure the biggest. It's kind of like a boring answer, I feel, considering I've said it like for most of the answers this evening. But they cast the widest net. They tick off the least people, and they generate the most talk about the game by there being tons of things. And that's Square through and through these days.
I have a question.
So I expect that.
Yes.
I have a question because you said that you think that Cloud should die. In Advent Children, isn't there a moment where we think Cloud's died and then he hasn't?
Oh yeah.
Isn't that? Do you think they could
Um,
do that again?
Yes. It wouldn't. It wouldn't. Yeah. It would make sense. I mean, you
Sort
kind
of
of have
like-
it in the OG as well, where he just goes comatose and you don't know if he comes back or not. And then it's the whole like rebuilding his psyche thing. And then it's
finding
like,
out who Cloud really is.
yeah, and then it's like, oh, this is the best written moment in gaming thus far. Holy crap! What have they done? I never thought this was possible. Wow. Okay. Cool. Thank you. Yeah. They
the
can
thing that even until I think my third playthrough, I was still going. Wait, it took until the live stream to make me go, not a clone. Yes, I'm with you. It keeps you in a bit of self doubt
Yeah.
until that point, and yeah, that's it.
Which is actually, funnily enough, number random fact, an error in the English version because clone is a mistranslation. It should never have been Sephiroth clones. It's copy.
See.
You know, the whole Project
does-
Reunion, it's copies. In the Japanese original language, it is called a copy, not a clone, because they're not clones. They're Nibelheim survivors that got experimented on because Hojo is really, really evil.
Yeah, like it goes on about clones, but it does kind of imply that most of them are a bit like Cloud and Zack. They're people who, or Soldier in general, they're people injected with Genova cells. They're not literal test tube attempt to. But then it is vague, so there is that fun. But I think there'll be a lot of OG points to come, and I think there'll be a lot of, if not concrete, there'll be things to let arise.
I
We
have.
can have another podcast then.
We will,
Yes.
don't you worry.
And
We'll be
after
having a
Crisis Core.
podcast. Exactly. I was about to say we'll definitely be having a Crisis Core one. I have one more question that isn't. I mean, it's more me just trying. I'm learning about things like the Crisis Core Zack part of it. So tell me if this makes zero sense. We've seen Zack turning up at the church at the end, alive when he's not supposed to be. Could it be that Zack is in the future and not in the same timeline as your party? Like 3 years in the future?
No, because that would be after Advent Children. The church would be flooded.
Oh, okay, cool. Thanks!
Unless it was between the two. Basically, because there is a kind of vague parallel because the party are at the edge of the Midgar Highway. The reason at the end of Remake, Zack saw the same cloud of whispers is that it's a bit vague. Are the whispers they killing retroactive? Is fate that they're killing retroactive? Is that the universe they're stepping into, or the universe they're stepping away from? They could really go anywhere with it, which is why I kind of feel that it's all a fake out. We're going to get actually something close to OG, and it's actually an excuse to go, yeah, but I've said it already, 7B. It's a what-if scenario. What if Zack survived? We're doing multiverse 7 with different things, and then there'll be crossovers between those universes. And
now, with the theory that Zack is actually in the live stream, just reliving his memories, it would make perfect sense if you were playing half the game. You're playing Zack, and you're thinking you're meeting Jesse, you're meeting Biggs, you're meeting Wedge, and you're thinking you're like on this adventure. You're trying to find Aerith, you're trying to find Cloud, you're going to all these places, but things are kind of weird. And then Aerith dies, goes to the live stream, and she's like, Zack, you've been dead this entire time. This is all the live stream. This is just memories. Now help me help Cloud fight Sephiroth. That would make sense, and it would preserve the continuity of the OG game while allowing you to watch Zack's sweet little butt kick ass.
Yep. And I think a way of doing that on the money would be having him revisit Nibelheim following the OG party, or even Gongaga.
Yeah.
And he finds it, as it were, in his memories, his hometown with a functioning reactor, maybe. and Cloud and the party find it with a destroyed reactor and 2 parents who are missing their kid who went off to war. And Aerith and Tifa act a bit funny about it. Easily. That would be my hope, because I want to see OG preserved as much as
Absolutely.
possible.
That would give you the best of both worlds. You have the weird timey-wimey multi-dimensional things, and then the psych out, and then and now we're going to continue the storyline as it should have, or that, like, it hits all of the important moments, and then you have the moment where you realize that Cloud is actually just like using Zack's memories as his own, and then wakes up, and then in the next game, then you can play around with the end, because then the weapon fight and how you defeat Sephiroth, it is like really epic and stuff, but it's not integral, right? The important part is you understand who Cloud is, Aerith dies, and then the end you can rewrite theoretically without everybody
I'd say
writing.
the most important bit is Meteor. Like, you don't have to necessarily have the huge materia hunt, though I think that will be, if Meteor turns up, that'll be part of 3. But yeah, I agree. The main points are Northern Crater, like, give him the black materia, Aerith dying, Cloud putting his head together, but they can jumble the order of that slightly, and Meteor. They don't. I mean, Midgar raid's probably needed as well. I think. You need an end to Midgar and Ruthless and Shinra.
It's a very neat package. It would work really well. It would be a bit boring, but it would be safe, and people would not burn down Square. So I think that's a plus.
I feel like the people they would pick, that's what they've been weighing up the entire time. Is they've had like multiple options, and they know they can go really hard line into the new stuff if they want to, and they're kind of playing it by ear and basically going, this one will, I don't know if tick off the least people is the right phrase, or generate the most sales. Let's Square.
Yeah.
Let's generate the most sales. That's what they're doing.
Absolutely.
Okay, we've reached the end. We've gone through a lot. We're gonna go to bed.
It's
but
midnight.
Thank you so much for thoroughly discussing really all of the Final Fantasy VII lore tonight. Everything. It wasn't just about Rebirth. It has covered a whole lot of things. Thank you everybody for being in chat, throwing in questions, throwing in your views as well. As I say, the VOD will be going up on YouTube. It'll be going across all podcast platforms as well.
Going to be editing it down first, maybe.
I won't, actually, so we'll be leaving it as it is, because everything is good content that we want to hear. So thank you so much. Could you just, my guests for this evening, thank you guys, but could you just tell us a little bit about when you stream, because you're both streamers, and what you are currently streaming? So Daimorty?
Yes, I do stream. I used to have a schedule, but life got in the way. I'm trying to rebuild a schedule, but usually Tuesdays, Fridays, weekends. Currently playing Remake. Going to play Intermission DLC. Currently playing Cult of the Lamb, and then a lot of other stuff coming up. October is my big month because Persona 5 Royal comes out on PC, and I love that game. And I already took vacation. I'm going to spend 2 weeks with that game and nothing but that game, and streaming it. So yeah, hope to see you there.
Exciting.
Thank you.
And Tomato, what about yourself?
Literally the last thing I streamed was integrate the Yuffie DLC. I was kind of thinking about doing the rest of the main game or maybe hard mode, but honestly I'm like a bit burnt out on it. DLC was kind of nice convenience of life upgrade. Otherwise, I guess I normally only stream on the weekends, and it tends to be like I've got a lot of hefty JRPGs and lots of different. I just play whatever I feel time. It's too hard. There's too many games. There's
This is true.
3, there's games, not enough time.
I forgot to mention Final Fantasy 14. I'm huge streaming that game, by the way. I don't know why I forgot it.
It's been a while, I think, isn't it? Since we've seen
we're between patches. I've been taking a break so I don't burn out. Yeah. But the new patch comes out on the 23rd, and then it's non-stop 14 again until Persona 5.
Well, there we go. So if you want to check out some other Final Fantasy streamers, but they also play all of the other things that they just mentioned, go give Dimorty and Tomato a follow. I'm going to plug a little bit now myself. As I said earlier, next Friday, not this one coming, so Friday the 26th, I will be playing Final Fantasy VII in one sitting. I will not be doing any of the skips, mostly because I can't learn them, but also because this is for charity. I will be raising money for Water Aid. The last time I did this, it took me 28 hours. I would like to be less than 24 hours, and at this point, I haven't practiced. So, yeah, feel free to catch me for a long time from 11 a.m. on the 26th. And we'll see how long it takes. It's a bank holiday weekend, so it really could take all weekend. But I've also got giveaways happening during it. It's not just, me trying to get through a game and dying repeatedly. I've also got a limited edition t-shirt. I was just showing the guys earlier. Let me see if I can hold this up.
It is amazing.
It's a
Buy
good t-shirt.
It is so good.
Prices are going up as well on the H1.
That I've designed with Dino. Me and Dino have created this t-shirt in recognition of this event. It has a date on the back of it. As you can see, green screen, not going to go very well. I will be wearing this t-shirt on that Friday, and however long it takes. But the proceeds, I think 5 or 10% of the proceeds from that will be going to Water Aid as well. I will let you know in the Discord when that goes up for sale. If you're not in the Discord, then you'll find the link out on the actual event day. So that's up to you guys if you want to have a sneak peek and catch a t-shirt before the day. But thank you ever so much. Thank you so much, everybody, for hanging out. Thank you, Dimorty and Tomato, for being on the panel tonight and answering all of those questions. It has been so fun. I really love our in-depth ones. And we'll see you all soon. This is the end. Yeah. Have a wonderful night, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night.